Okay. Hello everyone. I'm Timothy Von Rueden, better known as vonnart online. And before I get into this, let me check my audio. Okay. If there's any issues during the stream, please let me know right away. I tend to have tech issues because I'm not the most savvy when it comes to that kind of stuff, so please let me know and I'll do my best to fix it right away. But hello everyone. How are you guys doing? I'm going to be back for most of the summer on these Wednesday live streams. I just enjoy doing them in the moments where I don't have a lot of cons, and I think that's why I was getting stressed off and why I cut them last winter, because it was too many streams alongside too many cons in a row, and I needed a break. So that break is over, and here we are. So yeah, this is what I'm going to work on today. I initially had, can I zoom in here? Let's see. Yeah. So initially I had these Quiffrey from Witch Hat Atelier sketches I was trying to do this morning, and I just wasn't feeling it. So if any of you came here thinking I was going to do the fan art today, I am sorry. I am not going to be doing that. I don't know, I wasn't vibing with it, and I really enjoyed working on this drawing a couple nights ago. I was like, you know what? I'm going to, Josh has turned up the mic a little bit. Let me do that. Maybe pull it closer. How does that work? So yeah, I really wanted to just dive back into it. So I have a lot to catch up with you guys. If you have any comments or questions during the stream, it doesn't even have to necessarily pertain to the drawing itself. Please let me know as I'm working on it, and I will do my best to answer it. Before I jump into the drawing though, what were the only things I wanted to talk about? Oh yeah, well, I guess I can do it during the stream too. I've been reading a lot of books, and I kind of want to share some of them with you, but I can do that as it goes on because there's literally like 20 books, and I want to make sure it's not just a book review this entire stream. But I will share this first. I got a tarot deck from an artist named Nanako, and I am thrilled with how they look and turned out. I unintentionally became a tarot deck collector now that I'm making my own, and I'm always on the hunt for like new kind of cool tarot decks that really have the artist's voice behind them. And I've always loved her work prior anyways, so the fact that I saw the tarot deck announced, and I didn't even know she was working on one. I mean, look at this one specifically. I love this so much. I've never bought something that fast in my life. I literally was in bed. I looked at my phone, which I know you're not supposed to, but I looked at my phone and I saw it on, I think it was Twitter. I copy and pasted that into a separate Safari link or tab, and I ordered that so quickly. So yeah, if you're interested, I will put a link in the bio afterwards. This is phenomenal. The only downside, it's only the majors, not the minors, but still worth it in my opinion. Okay, so hello everyone that's here. I know I mentioned Tigil and Corey. Hello. Barbara's here. Oh, Felix here too. Hello, Felix. One art guy, Amy. Hello, everyone. Yeah, if you have any comments or questions, just let me know, but just please put @vonnart before it. That way it's easy for me to see and adjust here. And then let me change this to manual focus so it doesn't keep, there we go, much better. Okay, so I have been going through a lot of weird, I don't want to say soul searching, but I've definitely been going through some trials and tribulations when it comes to art. And I've been listening to this really great audiobook called Ego is the Enemy. And a lot of it just talks about how the worst thing you can build up for yourself is a reputation in whatever field you're in. And I think that's something I've been battling without really knowing it the last 3 years. And a lot of that pressure is definitely internal, and it's very much like you should be able to draw this. And it's this weird monologue that I have with myself, especially if I like don't draw a hand or a face correct or like proportionally right out the gate. I get so frustrated with myself, and I know that artists aren't supposed to be perfect. I know they're supposed to make mistakes, but there's a point where you feel like, man, I've drawn like hundreds of hands before. Why am I struggling with this right now? And then that pressure of you should be able to do this then weighs on like your feeling of what you're capable of doing. So I've been finally taking steps to combat that thought. And a lot of it is just one, having fun with it. And then two, accepting that, yeah, you know what? You've built up a reputation with your past efforts, but I'm relying on those efforts to determine how well my future projects should go. And that has been a terrible mindset to be in, especially as I'm doing the tarot deck too, because it's easy to get frustrated, and I've definitely gone down that path a few times. So anyways, I've been buying a lot of these books that are basically like, I don't want to say drawing for beginners, but definitely like trust the process, the zen of seeing drawing as a meditation, the art of basic drawing, drawing with an open mind. And a lot of them just kind of cut back to the fundamental of being a, newer artist that doesn't have a lot of skill sets in their tool belt to work with. And it's been kind of nice tapping back into that mindset. Mind you, I'm on the beginning of this journey, so I feel like I haven't learned a lot yet. But even just opening the door of, you know what, maybe I need to relearn some aspects, and maybe some of those are fundamentals, and that's embarrassing to say out loud, but that can happen. I think as you go down being an artist for years upon years, you think that I don't need to be redoing like fundamental work, but I genuinely feel like I forgot some of it. And for those of you who may have known me, last September, I went through a pretty crazy, we'll just say psychedelic trip, and I have come to the conclusion that I feel like I have forgot a little bit about how to draw. And I have been very embarrassed to say that out loud, but I think that's very true. So I'm relearning the fundamentals, and I thought it might be kind of cute as I do more of these live streams again to like literally pull up like a section of the book where it's like, okay, today we're going to be drawing something very simple, but really applying the core principles to like either fundamental work or value shading, lighting, whatever it is. And then I could do it alongside you guys. So I want to do more of my like follow along live streams, but in a way it's not me just teaching it. It's kind of me relearning with whoever wants to participate that day. So something to know about what's been going on with me, and it's been nice kind of realizing that and just taking the plunge back in and being like, you know what, I'm taking all this ego shield that I had, because I think ego, now that I'm reading or listening to this book, I really am like understanding why I put so much reliance on my past efforts to like stand proud and tall upon, but then I'm not allowing my new work to like stand as tall because I'm putting so much emphasis on what I did in the past. Anyways, I tend to ramble. Let's get on to this drawing. And like I said, I'll definitely do my best to answer any comments or questions along the way here. Oh, it's been so long since I attended a live stream. Your voice sounds like home, all soothing like. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be back streaming. So yeah, most Wednesdays in the summer, you can expect a live stream at this time frame, so 2 p.m. Central Time. One art guy, there's no shame in going back to the fundamentals. You'd be amazed at how many artists do the same thing. Yep, I maybe it's just my turn to grab that baton and do my lap. So with this drawing specifically, I'm going to show my Cintiq here. So something that I used to do more with my drawings, and I think, once again, going back to like shedding that ego shield, being like, you know what, I would like to see it digitally to like make any corrections. And oh, let me move this over. Does that always do that? Oh yeah, hold on. There we go. And like what could be improved upon from this? So I was going before the stream and I was like, okay, what if I erased this part of the hair? What would that look like? And I was like, okay, I kind of want this like freedom and her like maybe taking a leap of faith kind of feeling to it. And I was even looking at compositions because I have a really bad habit of just letting a drawing grow organically. Also why tarot has been so difficult for me. But I usually let drawings grow organically, so I usually don't have a set composition in mind. And sometimes that works very well for me because it'll like accidentally become something that is visually appealing. And other times it's not. And it clearly did not follow any composition in mind. And it doesn't work so well, but I'm okay with that. I'm usually okay with like letting art breathe and having it just be a reflection of what mindset I was in that day or week. But for this piece, I was like, you know what? Let me go back into a little bit of my roots of how I used to draw and really put more work into each drawing and what the like progress and what path that drawing could go down. So then I was thinking of, I really have been wanting to draw, I don't know why, but like a flag recently, like a really tattered, long, medieval, like thin flag flapping, and I love that look to it. So I was really trying to create, with intention this time, the composition of, or I guess on the screen this way, of all the lines pushing into that corner. So I'm really trying to emphasize that. So then I was trying different hand movements. I really liked like her like barely holding onto it. And then I ended up, let's see here, where is it? Oh, I guess I didn't do the hand drawing on this. But then I was trying to figure out, okay, what do these lines look like? How can I translate that back to paper? And I think one of the biggest things was I wanted to erase the hair that was in front of her. Because even though, yes, I like wild, thin spaghetti hair, I think it's very easy for that to get lost in the overall visual noise of what I'm doing. Like even with her, the hair that's covering right in between her neck and her shoulder, I actually think that creates kind of a weird dip into her, or into that shape there. So I'm gonna slim that back, and then I'm gonna pull the hair that's in front of her neck as well back, and that's kind of my goal. So I'm gonna have this on my second screen as reference. So let me pull this back over. So as you can see, there's the difference there. So I'm going to pull out my erasers. I lost my really good kneaded eraser. It was my favorite one. I'll have to do with like, do you see this like really dirty black one? This one will have to be my one for the stream today. So I'm just gonna go right into it and attack it. Actually, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more. Let me move my camera down. How does that look for you guys? Maybe like right there. Maybe a little more out. Right there. And then with the camera, I always have to set the focus to manual so that it doesn't keep focusing on my hand as it comes in and out of the screen here. Okay. So, first things first, I'm gonna erase these lines. Now, mind you, when I'm usually drawing at night, yeah, I'm just kind of letting my hand, you know, go free, and wherever it wants to put down lines, it can. But I'm trying to be, like I said, more intentional with it this time around. Actually, I don't mind some of these lines being left over. Well, the thing is, the top here is such a weird, fun, swoopy shape design that's going on. I don't want the hair. You know what? I'm just going to erase it. There's part of me that likes it, but I think there's a stronger part of me that just says take it away. I think I'm going to take away this too. Like that. Let's switch back here. Hello, Wishy. Hello, hello. Oh, Ruin Wonderland. I have missed these streams. Felix says, I feel the same. I've been trying to catch up by making new portfolio pieces the last few months. Since I've been declined from the 2 cons after my big one in 2 weeks, I'm going to have enough time to catch up on doing studies in anatomy, etc. Then once I feel like I leveled up, I can make new finished stuff again. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel right now. But it's weird. I have so many things on my plate that I can't like put a pause on. And I think I did it to myself, so I don't want to be someone that complains. I've always said the best artists are the best problem solvers. I just got to figure out how to manage the problem at hand. And my one friend, Beth B-Rad, she recommended a book called Essentialism. And it was very funny because Josh's mom sent him this book randomly without her knowing that I was going to want to read this book. And she sent it, and it was a very weird, my mom would call it a God moment, but it was definitely one of those weird moments where I'm like, I don't even know how you knew about this book or wanted to buy it to send it to Josh. But a lot of the point of the book is basically cutting out everything that's not essential in your workday and really trimming down the fat. And that's something that I probably could use some help with, because on top of my full-time job, which technically is going to cons, I also have to keep up with social media, and nowadays, obviously, it's a little different than it used to be, as many of you probably know, with TikTok and Reel and video format being kind of king right now. And then I try to do YouTube stuff. I try to do at least one video a month. Actually, Josh is in the room over. Josh is my lovely hubby-to-be. Hello, Josh. And he's also listening in right now. But he is editing a video on one that we've been recording together. It's how to create a tarot card from start to finish. And so I'm trying to be a YouTuber. And then on top of that, I'm running a Patreon. And what was the other big thing? Oh, I do some freelance here and there, but I try to keep that bare minimum. And then drawing. Yeah, the thing that, I got into this to begin with is my love of drawing, but now it's weirdly feeling like it's taken the back seat. But then even within the drawing landscape, I have the tarot deck that I announced way too early. I should have waited until half the cards were done. And then I have my 5-foot Aquatica Nautica drawing that I've been getting back into, and I found a way to make it more enjoyable. I have a video that my Patreon people can watch actually right now, but it'll be released public next month. And it's basically the main principle is work on like just one thing a day. It doesn't have to be an hour, just one thing. And if I really enjoy working on that or the big piece that day, maybe I'll draw a little bit more. Maybe I'll draw a full mermaid or a building, but I have to draw one thing every work day. And then on top of that, I have my next art book, which is a 11-year collection art book. So it's a giant coffee table book of 11 years of all the drawings that I've done in these years. And I have to have that done and ready for a Kickstarter next April. And then lastly, I've been on and off with writing swordplay, and then obviously doing drawings like this or making new coins. I finally made some coins recently. And I have to make a few more by the end of this month. And then I also have to make new pins. So it's just a lot. And I think I sound like I'm complaining because I am, and I don't want to be that person. So I'm realizing I have to just cut things down. And I have to figure out what is essential for me right now and how can I still do things like the tarot deck and the 5-foot drawing and whatever it is that is on my plate and not feel overwhelmed. So I'll share with you guys how that journey goes and continues. Reading books, though, has definitely helped me a lot. Amy, yeah, what was the Ego's book's name again? It's Ego is the Enemy. It's very lovely. I found that I really work well listening to audiobooks or just listening to people. I didn't know that about me really until last week, but then I was listening. I finished one book. I don't even want to recommend it, so I won't say it because it was fine. It was not that great though. And then this one has been great, but then I've been listening to people stream even this morning. Justin Gerard, he's one of my favorite artists. I love him. I've gotten to the point where I can actually call him a friend, which is really nice because he's just not only a lovely artist, but a lovely person. And I was just watching his Twitch streams, and yeah, I don't know. There's something about like background noise and being able to listen to someone talk about art or drawing or life or whatever while I'm drawing. I really enjoy it. I mean, maybe it's why some of you guys come to this stream now that I'm thinking about it. It's just like maybe like something you put on the background and something that just nice to have while you're working. Let's see here. One art guy says, when it comes to forming compositions, everyone has their own process. I personally like to write out my ideas and then let it evolve from there. Oh, you write it first. That's kind of interesting. I've never really known anyone to write their ideas before diving into the drawing. I kind of love that though, because if you have an idea that you can kind of put down in words, I feel like then visually you'll start to form more as you write more. So yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. I'd be open to trying it, especially in this place in my life where I'm willing to like accept that I need to relearn some of the fundamentals. Let's see, what do I want to do first here? You know what? This might be more fun for you guys to even watch. I want to do the part where she's holding the flag that's right in front of her. Let's see, do I have a straight edge? I do. So let's see here. Her arm, let me pull up this thing here. Bool Star says, how do you balance hobbies like reading and video games on top of everything you have going on? Oh, this is, okay, great topic to segue into. So I'm a really big person into creating a schedule and like habits. And I've been reading this one book called Atomic Habits right now, and I really like it. It's very objective based, and I feel like it fits my personality really well because I feel like I'm a very objective based thinker, like very black and white. And it kind of gives a lot of good advice on how to manage your habits. And I guess, like, what would be a good example? Okay, I'll give you two out from the book. The first one, they talked about how heroin addicts in Vietnam War, so the soldiers that went overseas and were fighting this war, a lot of them became addicted. I believe it was heroin. And it was a really high number of veterans that were getting addicted. Anyways, researchers found out when they would come back, they were ready for like therapy and ready to help them kind of come off their drug because of the epidemic that was happening in America at the same time. And usually when people get addicted, they were saying they would go to rehab, but then when they get back into their environment, it was something really high. It was like 90% of people would go back to the addiction. But for the vets that would come home, they found the opposite, where they found like only 10 to 15% of veterans that came back from the war would go back to the drug. And they were studying why. And one of them was your environment is so essential to the habits that you form. And they have a whole chapter about environment specifically. And they were saying that yes, if you take someone who's addicted to a drug and then put them in rehab, and then they're getting clean, they figure out why it's not good for you. Part of it is because they're in an environment where everyone's trying to get better, the substance isn't readily available, and the mentality around it is so different. But then when you remove that person from that positive environment, throw them right back into that negative environment, guess what happens? They're around the same friends, the family that stresses them out, whatever it is, and they find the drug again. And they were saying that vets in the war, because they're not surrounded by gunfire constantly or the, constant threat of danger and death, and the amount that was readily available to them at that time, when they would come back, they weren't going back to the drug. And I just thought that was really interesting. So they give you a lot of tips on how to make your environment, regardless of what your career is, more readily suited for you to create habits so that you can be more efficient with them, so that you can do things like reading books and play video games and you don't feel guilty about it. So I would just recommend reading the book. I can give tips for days. But the other thing that I really liked, what was it? I even have notes. Actually, hold on, let me pull it up. Do you like this is my little, I use my own journal for notes here. I guess this one's okay. They call it like habit stacking. So the idea is you change the association you have with it from a negative to a positive. So for me, I really don't like waking up early, but I know I really want to be the person that does wake up early. Like that's something I want to try out and be better, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So one of the things now I do is when I wake up, the first thing I do is I mix my water with, it's called Kion Amino Energy. I'm not sponsored or anything, but I love the flavor. It's really good for you and it helps wake you up. And because I see it as such a treat, now that's my thing of what I associate waking up with being able to drink one of these. So every morning now, the first thing I do is I walk downstairs and immediately I pour it in, I shake it, and I drink a good chunk of it. And it's been nice because now when, my alarm goes off in the morning, I no longer have like a groggy association with waking up and going to work. Like that's no longer my first association. My first association is being able to drink one of these drinks. So anyways, I would recommend the book. I'm only halfway through it, so I can't say fully if it's a good book or not, but I've been really enjoying it so far. So anyways, how do I find time for video games and reading and that kind of stuff? Well, I make it part of my habits. So actually, one of the things I do when I wake up is I read for like 15, 20 minutes. It's usually like a chapter-ish. And I take notes, and I'm kind of a slow reader, so it takes me probably longer than most people. But I see it as such a treat, and once again, I associate the positive associations with I really like these. They're called nut butter bars. They're basically like granola bar with peanut butter in them. It's like a good protein for vegans. And I now have one of those when I read for 15-20 minutes. So once again, another positive association with something that, I mean, I actually like reading, but it's just another thing like that makes me want to read even more, because then I know there's that reward at the end. But yeah, like I said, segue into video game talk. I have been so spoiled with entertainment lately. I don't know if you guys are kind of on the same level of thinking with, it's been amazing. Literally, I've been playing Diablo. Josh got me into it, and it's a lot of fun. I wasn't expecting to like it. I like it a lot. And then I played the Lies of P demo, which is basically a FromSoft knockoff. I can't believe they're getting away with how much they're stealing, to be honest. And there's a part of me that feels kind of grossed out that they're just directly ripping it. But then there's another part of me that is kind of having fun because it's basically Bloodborne in a Bioshock atmosphere. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but it was exciting to play. And then, what was it? 2 nights ago, I tried Final Fantasy 16 demo, and that was fantastic. I went in very skeptical, and I'm talking very skeptical. I feel like I'm not an easy person to just impress when it comes to entertainment, especially movies and video games. I'm sure you wouldn't even want to hear my opinion of Legend of Zelda. I don't think visually it looks that great. But 16, I went in very objective thinking, even though it's my favorite franchise that's ever been made, I can still look at the trailer that came out when it first announced, and I was like, this looks kind of safe, kind of bland, and I wasn't really into it. I thought it was being too heavily influenced by other properties. It basically looked like a Game of Thrones knockoff almost. And I played the demo. Josh was watching me. And after, like, the first 10 minutes, I was still, like, not on board. But then the next hour and a half after, I was totally on board. It's so character-driven. And the narrative is directly influenced and involving the main character. And hot take, I feel like a lot of video games nowadays, they try to have like a nobody be the main character. So basically it's just some nothing character that whoever the players can just fill in as themselves, because as you know, nowadays everyone loves themselves. So why not just create a blank, hollow vessel that players can just inject themselves into? And even though I loved Elden Ring, the main character was a nothing character. Link is a nothing character, and then even as I'm playing Diablo, it's like that's a nothing character. The Hogwarts Legacy game, once again, that's a nothing character, and I kind of miss personal or personalities driving character narrative driven games. And I was trying to think about that, where like What Remains of Edith Finch, the indie game that came out a couple years ago, that was like one of my favorite games I've ever played. But that one's so heavily character-driven. And then another game was Psychonauts 2 with Raz as the main character. Kind of very weird game, but it's very driven by the character. And then I think I realized I just am a very character-driven video game fan. And I haven't been really getting a lot of those at all, because I feel like they're not the money makers. And look at games like Final Fantasy X, my favorite game of all time. If you didn't like Titus, there's a good chance you're not going to play the game. And I think a lot of game developers have caught on to that. So they're making characters that are just so bland and just nothing that it kind of bothers me. Once again, it's more of a personal preference. I understand if you like them. I'm not trying to like dog on it, but not for me. But I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say I did really enjoy Elden Ring and Bloodborne and FromSoft. So there is a part of me that still likes it, but I was also a little open world fatigued from, I played like 3 in a row, I believe they were, and I kind of miss linear games. I know that's definitely not the popular opinion here, and I think it kind of just depends on what games you play recently, but I very much enjoyed that Final Fantasy 16, even in the demo, felt very much like, okay, you go here to here to here, but I didn't really care because I love the story so much. I will say though, where's the, let me move this over here. There we go. Yeah, I will say that I was very nervous for the combat because people told me it was going to be like Devil May Cry, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Devil May Cry. Very silly game, very bro, but it wasn't for me. And I heard that, Sean, my other good friend, Art of Price, he was telling me that the combat specifically was being passed around from developer to developer. So there was a lot of people that had their hands in it. And I liked the action. So it turned out I actually enjoyed the gameplay. I still think 7 is like the perfect RPG format for, at least for myself. I absolutely loved it, and I love the way that it just works in that world. But I actually did like the combat in 16. So yeah, I'm very happy. I know it comes out in like 2 weeks, so I'm literally taking 3 days off so I can just play 16. So yeah. And then on top of that, there were so many other... Oh, just this year's been amazing. Pikmin 4 comes out next month, and I'm a huge Pikmin fan. Like really, like I don't know why, but that game, it like really hits me to my core. I love it. I love the game. And it comes out next month, so not only have I been playing Diablo 4, which has been fun, but then it's like 16 comes out in 2 weeks, and then Pikmin 4, and then Lies of P comes out in September. And then now we just saw the new Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer, and that comes out probably, February of next year, most likely. And I feel very spoiled by video games right now. Very good. Very good. So I'm curious, have any of you been playing or, are you excited about any of the games I mentioned? Because I definitely was over the moon. Or still am, actually. Let's see here. That one art guy says, my environment is my bedroom, which is basically a rainforest with all the plants I have. It also helps that I get that golden morning light. Yes, that's amazing. Definitely having more foliage can help with, I guess your mood in general. I think just being surrounded by life and greenery, I think that helps. At least for me, it does. Make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. I have a really bad habit of, drawing in off camera. One of the goals I'm going to get better at with coming back to streaming here. So I'm going to have her holding this flag, and for me this flag kind of represents taking the leap, or accepting, I don't want to say defeat. Oh, I guess I could. It could be like a white flag. Oh, I kind of like that idea. Like surrendering with grace. I didn't think about that before. I kind of like that. Yes. I agree with Corey. I do have a hard time with nothing character games, but that's okay. I get 16. I'm spoiled. So I'm a very happy camper right now. What else did I have on my list that I wanted to talk about? Oh, yeah, and then on top of video games being amazing, entertainment's been incredible lately. So I wrote down, literally I think yesterday, Beau is Afraid came out on streaming services, so I'm going to have me and Josh watch that sometime soon. And that's the new Ari Aster film, but that looks right down my alley. The new Black Mirror season comes out this weekend, and I'm a huge Black Mirror fan, especially most of season 3 and then some really good ones in season 4. What is it? Hang the DJ is my probably favorite episode, and I know ironically that's the only happy quote-unquote one, but I really like Hang the DJ. And then the new Wes Anderson film, Asteroid City, comes out the end of this month. And then same with, I really like the CrossFit Games documentary that comes out every year. It's Fittest on Earth, I believe is the tagline. And the new one of that comes out at the end of June. And then I'm a really big nut for culty documentaries. I just find them fascinating. And then literally, it was 2 days ago, the Duggar family, the 19 Kids and Counting family on TLC, they just got a documentary series on Amazon Prime that kind of showcases their religion and how it kind of just conditions children, specifically women, to be subservient to men, and then can lead to things like child abuse. And you saw that with the actual Duggar family themselves, with the oldest son. So I I've been trying to tell Josh, and then lastly, my favorite band ever, Sigur Rós, they're releasing a new album this month. And on top of that, my other favorite just singer-songwriter, Lana Del Rey, her dad released an album this month that had 2 tracks with her on it. This has literally been my favorite month in entertainment ever. Like ever, out of all the years that I've existed on this earth. So, very happy camper here. All right, what did I want to do next? Oh yeah, so I'm going to push this up. So I'm going to give her that kind of leap. I'm going to have it leap forward. Let's draw some. I think I kind of want this to fade down because since I'm trying to be more intentional with my drawings, I'm going to let a lot of the focus be here, and that's going to be with a lot of detail and a lot of high contrast between like dark areas and light. So then down here, I'm going to let this kind of fade into like a soft, very light gray. But underneath her other leg here, which will probably look like this, I'm going to have her other leg just kind of become a silhouette, honestly. Just a very negative space silhouette. I gotta figure out the fabric situation though here. Actually, I might have this leg go a little more down. And then, just a reminder, if you are commenting on things I'm talking about or want me to say it or ask a question, just put @vonnart before it. That way when I look up at the monitor and then back down in my drawing, I can see quickly if someone wants a question, because I see a lot of people writing, but I'm like, I don't know if they're writing for me to say something or if they're just having conversation with chat. It just helps out a little bit. It just helps it out. I think her knee's too small though. I might even do like a It's part of me that almost doesn't want to even go lower than this. Just have it be. I do think I need some fabric though. What did I do in my little test? Oh yeah. So I think we have a lot of lines come across here. And I'm gonna have that hand over there. One art guy says, I haven't played video games in a while since it consumes my focus, but I'm working on an illustration of a satyr emerging from a tree, and someone said it looks like it's from Elden Ring. Oh boy, let me tell you, when I go to cons now, I have so many people tell me my stuff looks like Elden Ring, and a lot of it was drawn like in 2017, and I'm like, well, that's cool. Like, I do like Elden Ring, so I'm not going to take offense to that. But I do get a lot of people, like, they'll just pass my booth and be like, oh, it looks like Elden Ring, and then move on. I'm like, I don't want to be reduced to just looking like a property that's known publicly as like the dark fantasy property. But, you know, you don't get control over how people see your work, and I have to accept that. So yeah, if you get frustrated by people just comparing your stuff constantly, I get it. Can be kind of annoying, but now I see it more as a compliment, because I'm like, wait, Tim, you like From Software games. You love Elden Ring. Take that as like a really, big compliment. Felix says, should we make a pack to tackle the Proco anatomy course? I would definitely. I love Proco. It was nice. I was able to meet him at Lightbox, but it was very brief because he had a giant booth and he was going through a bunch of people constantly. So I don't even know if he would remember me, but I would love to do an anatomy course again. Once again, this is like taking that ego shield off and being like, you know what, Tim, your ego has gotten a little rusty over the years, and it's because I don't do life drawing as much anymore. So yeah, like when I'm drawing these hips and I'm doing the legs and the knees, I'm like, man, everything just feels a little off, and then I have to like readjust it constantly. So I'd be in for that. I mean, it might be kind of fun to make it a like live stream thing where like every Wednesday I like tackle the next video and do it maybe with you guys. Something to think about. I'm not opposed, honestly. I think as I get more comfortable, like Josh and I have talked about doing less cons so we can be home more. So that would be something where, yeah, I could be home more, like making these videos, because YouTube generates profit for me and revenue. And like that would be a cool thing, I think, for people to see an artist that like had somewhat of an establishment on Instagram kind of swallow their pride and be like, I need to take the fundamentals but from Procro and then go through that process together of tackling them. So I don't know, let me know. Does that interest any of you? Like as I'm even mentioning that, does that sound fun? Oh, has this been on? Oh no, we're good. What was I doing? This hip I think would go around. I will say for some of them, like I think if I did the anatomy ones, I might bring Josh on board just to help moderate, because as you can tell, sometimes when I'm streaming, I get distracted looking up and down and it takes me like a second to refocus on the drawing. Lady Rose, I find that a lot of detailed art within the fantasy genre gets compared to whatever fantasy media is popular at the time. Yep, totally agree. It's just something I've learned to live with and accept. There's literally no use in fighting it. I think people are going to see, especially, do I have it here? Let me see if you guys can see this. This drawing right here, it's like a guy with a swirly helmet behind him. Everyone asked me if that's like my interpretation of Melania nowadays. I'm like, no, I drew that in like 2018. Obviously I don't word it like that. I'm like, oh no, actually I drew it a long time ago, but I love Melania's design. If I was being completely honest, this is actually more inspired by Angelomon. Digimon had a big influence on, I love characters that have helmets that cover half of their face and you can see their mouth. It's like Angemon, Angelomon, Devimon, Myotismon, Piedmon. They all have these masks that cover half their face except for their mouth. And I'm a big fan of that. And they have really long arms as limbs and really long legs, and then they have like short torsos. So you see that a lot in my work, and I was heavily influenced from that. Llama Lookalike says, do you enjoy general pencils above others? Kind of. I do like these general Kimberlys, but I will say I love the Blackwing pearls. I only do these on drawings where I really want to punch values quickly, but when you put them to paper, it's like butter. But the thing is, they're dark. They're not like a 6B. They're supposed to be HB, but when I compare them to the rest of my drawing, because I normally draw with mostly a 2H, it goes on pretty dark. And you know what? Maybe that's just me, once again, speaking out of fear. Like, yeah, I should be being more bold with my pencil lines. Like, why? Man, even hearing myself talk about it, it's like I never used to have that in my 20s. I was very bold in my 20s, but now I feel like everything has to be procedural and like methodical in a way that just doesn't go like with creating art efficiently. So yeah, that's something I do want to get better at, is just letting go of these predetermined ideologies that I have with drawing. So even like right now, like, yeah, let's pull out the Blackwing Pearl. Like, let's add some darker areas and see what happens. I guess maybe I should sharpen it first, though. Do I have my sharpener in here? I do. 1 second. There we go. Blackwing pencil sharpener. Lady Rose says, I would love to learn art from you. I mean, I do have some tutorials on my site right now. Funnily enough, the number one is a gold leafing tutorial that kind of like took off out of nowhere, even though it's literally this unedited video that I just decided that day to film myself in the backyard gold leafing a canvas. And I was like, you know what, I guess I'll just talk about it while I do it. Thank gosh I actually made that decision, because that is the video that generates the most money on YouTube. But it's so funny because there's no editing, there's no like fades, there's no cuts, there's no inserts. And it just reminds me that sometimes people really enjoy like genuineness, and they can like tell when an artist is like trying to be popular or like trying to make a video that's going to garner views. And mind you, I still try to do that. I'm not trying to hide it either. But I think people can tell when you're having more fun with it. Like Josh and I made a video like 3 months ago on books, my favorite art books. And that video actually, as of I think like yesterday, it hit 10K, which I know compared to my gold leafing video, which has like 1.5 million, seems like a drop in the bucket. But for me, I had such a good time working with him on this video, and I'm like really proud of it. That I think matters more to me than views. And it was like one of those things that really hit me of like, oh, you can still make content nowadays in this like new social media conundrum that we're in with just all the rules and all the things that you have to do to be a modern artist. But you can still have fun, and people will respond to it because they can tell if you're having fun versus if you're doing it specifically for like views or likes. And I'm not immune to it. I very much play into it. Sometimes I'll be like, I haven't made a reel in a while. I'm like, okay, let me just record what I'm doing today and I'll make a reel based on whatever I'm working on. But then other times I'm like, oh, you know what? I really like this new song I've been listening to. I'm gonna pair that in a video with this new drawing I'm working on, and like I get excited about it. I'm like, oh yeah, like that feeling is what we're trying to capture again, and people will respond to that. Not always, and you can't expect people to always respond to it. But that's once again another ego thing that I'm swallowing of like, yeah, even though you have almost 500,000 on Instagram, you can't expect everything you create to garner like a well-received like wow, good job, or like wow, that's amazing, you're such a good artist. I think as you build your career, you start to just expect that. And I'm learning from this book, that's the worst thing you can do for your career, is when you start to expect a response. You shouldn't be expecting a response. You should be creating what makes you happy, and then it's like a byproduct that if people like what you're drawing, that you also brings you joy. Like it's just bonus on bonus, but that shouldn't be like the initial goal. Anyways, I'm gonna start doing, actually, what do I want to do next? Let me see, what did I have in my thumbnail that I wanted to do? Oh yeah, I guess I'll make, well, let's see here. Well, I guess I can draw her other hand here. Move this aside. Actually, while I'm doing that, let's see the next question. Felix says, yes, it would be great to hold each other accountable and go through the course together. There is a forum on Procro, but it's not super active. You know what? If you give me more information about it, I am definitely not opposed. Like, I'm serious. I think I would actually do this. One art guy says, you never know what will shoot off your career. Yeah. That's probably the hardest thing to tell a younger artist, because they ask me a lot about like those specific questions of like what does it take to become a modern artist, and how do you get successful, how do you become independent, how do you make money. And it feels weird saying it, but like there is a good amount of luck that is involved. Like, yes, perseverance is great, but I would say, let me find, I took a reference picture of my hand before this started. As you can see, I'm going to use that as my reference. I think a lot of it comes down to creating a lot of work and try to aim for quality, but at the same time create so much that you're unintentionally also producing quantity, because through that, like let's say only 10% of your drawings are ever actually good enough that people would want to like hang or buy for their house or whatever it might be. If you create 10 a year, that means only one of them will be successful. But if you're someone that can pump out like, let's say 50 a year, okay, well then now you will have 5 that are successful. And then especially if you have a lot of time and energy, or if you're just super motivated, like let's say one year you pump out 100 drawings, some of them bigger, some of them smaller. Out of those 100, there might be 10 that are successful that you can then like use for other things. So I tell people, even though I always, in the past especially, I always would recommend really focus on quantity. But I'm realizing if you focus on quantity, but try to produce as much as you can, you're going to be able to work with a lot more of a selection. And also in doing so, you get better. Oh, what book was I reading? Oh, I think it was it Influence? Basically, I'll sum it up really quickly. One of the chapters talked about how there was an art class, and the teacher split the class in half. To half of the class, she said, for the entire course, just make one piece that is the best piece you possibly can. And to the other half, she said, to get a good grade, all you have to do is create as many pieces as you can. And they showed that at the end, the group that was just assigned to make the one piece, their piece was just okay. It was definitely good, but it wasn't great. But then you looked at the other side, yeah, the first, I think there was a sculpting class, it was a clay class, and the first 20, 25 were kind of terrible. But then what they noticed is as the class time went along, and it was like months had passed, they were creating things that were better than the one piece from the other side. And they were able to do it more consistently and more efficiently. And I think about that a lot because I've slowed down quite a bit in my drawing. And I think part of it is, once again, that I need it to look a certain way, or I need it to pass like a certain threshold of quality. And that pressure I never had when I was younger. But I think another thing is I'm going to dive back into color next year and really dive back into digital. And I think part of it is there's a lot of quickness you can have with digital that you just can't have with traditional. And I don't really want to have the whole debate of is digital easier than traditional. I think a lot of artists, especially if you talk to artists that are in the field and that are working, everyone will kind of admit, yes, digital is obviously easier, but that doesn't mean that it's worse. And I think that's the association that tends to come with people with it being quote unquote easier. But I'm not saying digital is worse than traditional, but I do think it is easier 100%. And for me, if I want to create a lot more pieces and I really want to dive back into color more, I know myself, and I know I was really fast in digital because you can just push and pull things all the time and you can just create a bunch of lines. Where with pencil, you have to be kind of careful because if I were to erase like this section here, it would leave behind the marks where the graphite were because it was so dark. So there is no perfect undo to get back to the white paper. And even with a face, I know her face is a little stretched this way. So here, let me show it this way. So I know eventually I'm going to have to erase part of the eye and part of the hair and push it in. Where if this was digital, I could take liquify, make it this big of a circle, and then you're done. So yeah, I know it's kind of a hot topic for artists, but I don't really necessarily see why it has to be a hot topic. I think we can just all agree. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe it's an agree to disagree thing, but it's very obvious to me. It's yes, digital is easier, but that doesn't make it worse. And there's a lot of digital art friends that I have nowadays where I respect their work so much. And it has nothing to do with the medium. Let's see here. Jot the Wizard says, are there any artists, mediums, or styles outside of your current style that you want to experiment with? Yes, like I just mentioned, I really want to do digital, but my dream one day, once I'm very much financially stable, and I think that will be maybe when the tarot deck is out, I really want to dabble in stained glass. It's kind of a pipe dream of mine, and it's something where like if I died and I never got to do it, like I wouldn't be. It's not like I have to do it or else I'll feel like I'll have regrets. But it's something that I'm like, you know what, it would be fun to play with, but I would want like the time and energy it would take to get good at doing stained glass. And like right now where I'm at in my life, it doesn't make sense. All right, let's see here. I think I'm gonna pull her hair to the end here. Let me move this here. Oh, let's see here. Elena says, as I've started to try to sell my paintings for the first time, but doing it the first time was relieving too. Like now the first one is done, so I can do it again. Oh, yes. I remember I used to hoard my originals. I'm not really sure why. I always had the assumption that I would like give them to my kids when I died and they could sell them if I made something of myself or like my name while I was alive. But now I'm like, but you know, it's so rewarding seeing when someone buys an original and knowing that's like going to a good home and not just for like, oh, this will make me money as a resale value. So I've been way more comfortable selling my originals. The only thing I hope you're doing is I hope you're not underselling yourself. I hope you're doing a good job with pricing accordingly. Bullstar says, what do you think about AI, especially since you had experience using Midjourney? Have your thoughts changed? So I made a video on YouTube when it first came out. And it was basically just, I wanted to expose how it worked because at that time, it was like very much behind closed doors and everyone was being very gatekeepy with it. And I was like, I need the general public to understand that people using Midjourney is not like this arduous task. You just put in a sentence or two and it pops something out. So my intention may have been a little bit more bitter back then of like trying to expose how easy it was. I don't think my opinion on it has changed all too much in terms of, I don't really necessarily see it as what I would consider art, but I'm also not the person that gets to define what is and is not art, you know? Like it's subjective, and I can now in my 30s be able to like allow other people to see it as art, and I'm not gonna be like judgmental or critiquey on them. But for me personally, I need there to be a human behind the creation, and that does not mean typing in prompts. It means taking the journey of, you know, creating the piece and having there to be a meaning behind it and letting that artist put their personality into it, and then having that technical ability, especially when it comes to like some traditional mediums like oil, or the way that Jeremy Bastian uses a single bristle of black paint to create his super intricate line art for his Pirate Girl series. There's just an appreciation for it, and it could be the way that I grew up. Maybe I'm conditioned to appreciate that more, especially because like I'm also I third person myself a lot, so I also look at, well, maybe it's because my parents valued hard work, so there's some of that got conditioned into me growing up where I also appreciate the reflection of hard work from an artist. And knowing that AI basically takes out 95% of the work, if not more, I just don't have that same like respect towards it. So I do think we're going to see a lot more of AI in the future. I do think it will be much better than what it is right now. And I can't deny that there have been a lot of AI pieces that I've been really impressed with, not knowing that they were AI. And I do feel a little bit tricked when I find out that they're not done by hand. And that could just be, once again, my conditioning into like valuing the human input. But I feel like I don't have a set in stone like feeling about it yet. I feel like I'm definitely leaning more one way than the other. But we'll see what happens in the future, because we're going to see it a lot more, not only in like art, but we're going to see it with the entertainment field. So like we're seeing animation now being programmed with AI. And obviously it looks really choppy right now, and you can kind of tell it looks so weird. But imagine in 5 years, you could type into an AI prompt generator, like, I want to watch a 10-minute short film that's set in the Dune universe with Lady Gaga as the heroine and Sephiroth as the villain, and it would pump out a 10-minute animation short. And if you kept getting like more specific, it would probably do a better job. But to me, that's wild. Like the idea that that's going to happen not only in our lifetime, but like soon raises a lot of other questions because then it's like, is the person experiencing that completely AI film, to them that could be art, and to them that experience alone matters to them. So like they don't care that it wasn't made by a human and that was made by a computer prompt generator. They don't care. They were maybe really touched and affected by it. So then how can you take that experience away from them just by being like, oh, well, it wasn't human made, like that only computers made that. But that person would be like, yeah, but the subjects that they brought up in it were very human to me, and I had a experience isolated from knowing that is unique to me. So like it's a very interesting conversation, and I'm usually willing to have it with most people. I know a lot of people are just so tired of it, but I'm like, I'm still okay having conversations about it, but I don't want to pretend that I would want that to be my career. Like I don't want to be a prompt artist. I like working, especially with pencil. I like building up a drawing and letting it grow organically. I feel like it's a meditation for me. And if I cut that meditation out, I'm losing some of the like mental stability that I think I have and have garnered over the years, because I realized art isn't just a means to an end for me. It literally is like a way for me to reflect on life, and it's very beautiful. So to me, art is something very precious and sacred. So AI does kind of take a swing at that. Moving on, Elena says, is it weird experiencing trying digital for the first time? One of the reasons why I've stuck to traditional is exactly the performance or permeance and sort of corporalness of what I make. Yes, digital is weird. When I first started learning it when I was in college, I remember I called it the 3-month hump. And it's basically, you're not only learning to paint digitally, which is a whole different medium, but you're also learning to work in a software. And for me, that was Photoshop. So like I kind of think it takes about 3 months of working in it pretty consistently to understand building up the muscle memory to be working digitally. And at that time I was working on a tablet, not on like a Cintiq. So it was like a little plastic square. So you have to look at the screen. So there's like hand-eye coordination that you no longer have built in, because with the pencil drawing or painting, you're literally painting exactly where you're looking. Where with what we were doing, we were looking at a screen, but our hand was drawing beneath us, which was very strange. Nowadays, I think most people are drawing on iPads or something where they're looking where they're drawing now again. But I still think it takes about 3 months, because then you gotta learn the software as well. Like even Procreate, even though it's much simpler than Photoshop, it's still a bit to learn, especially if you're not familiar with the software at all. Let's see here. Llama Lookalike says, do you find people dislike digital art due to the connotations of the tortured artist? Many still assume makes artists the undue button making art easier. I think the general public, yes, would say that they assume that digital art is easier because a lot of them don't understand what digital art is. So to them, they'll see digital art and they might think, oh, you just literally like drag Google images and then paint over them, which some do actually. I know some artists that they're very reference heavy to the point where they're basically just drawing over Google images, but they don't understand how it works. Being someone who worked almost primarily digital for like 7 years, and I taught it with CG Cookie, I understand that obviously, yes, it's still you're painting it. There's a lot of shortcuts you can take, especially when you start getting into like custom brushes, and nowadays there's like, it's crazy how much the art genre has changed in a short amount of time. Like now there's these 3D models. I forgot what software it was, but you can pose them and then you can like put that into your painting and then paint over it. Where it was a little different when I was in college. So I don't know what new enhancements there are, because like I said, I haven't done digital like that much at all in the last like 6 years. So I'm kind of curious as I dive back into it next year to relearn, because one of the things that is kind of the modern standard now with digital art is using the selection tool. So to me, this is so opposite of how I was learned. I was taught to basically digital paint like traditional painting. So you would paint in layers and you would like build up values. Where nowadays, the new thing is you create a shape using the selection marching ant tool, and then you fill it in with a solid color, and then that's like its own layer, and then you might do like a gradient over that or throw textures on that. But there's like very little build up painting anymore, because there's so much to be said about efficiency and being able to create as many pieces as you can. And that's just not, that's so not the way that I was taught. So I have to like reteach myself how to digital paint. And not because I think the like one is better than the other, but I do think one is definitely more time efficient. And the way that I learned is not time efficient. And I'm very open to admit that. And I think it's good when you can admit that, you know, something that you were taught is kind of outdated and it needs to be updated. And that's okay. It can be frustrating because like I know the process of learning digital art is not always a fun one, but it's a necessary one that I am now looking at as like, well, I want to better my digital skills. I have to just suck it up and relearn how to do it. Lady Rose says, I loved doing stained glass when I was in university. It was my first and only time and haven't done it since, but I've always wanted to get back into it. It's not hard to get into. There was a video I watched about someone that made a stained glass piece, and I remember being like, I think I can do that. And ever since then, I've had that desire to at least do it once in my life. Because I remember watching the video being like, I think I can do this. And you know, whenever you have that weird sense of confidence, even though you've never done it before, but you kind of understand the process and how you would attack it, that's exciting. Especially as an artist, because you're like, oh, this is like a new medium that I can explore creativity and, you know, what I'm able to make with that mindset. That one art guy says, one of the things I'm focusing on is creating art that can be sold as prints to different people with different tastes. Anything from cottagecore fairies to horrific nightmare creatures. Yeah. I think especially if the mindset is to make money, it can be very, honestly, easy. I should probably word this better. I should just word it better, but it is kind of true. Like, you can look at what's popular in media and be like, okay, well, clearly this is generating a lot of money. Sometimes it's more obvious than others. Like right now, there's a huge Tears of the Kingdom push. So if you're like doing link fan art, yeah, there's a good chance there's going to be like a public response to that. And especially if you're trying to make money or prints, if you just did like Link in front of a sunset, I mean, no offense, but I feel like you could do very simple art pieces that don't really take a lot of thought or creativity, and they're just like proven to work, and they are successful. So I think like it depends on what kind of an artist you want to be perceived as. And me and my art friends have this talk a lot where it's like, yeah, you can do a bunch of fan art. Actually, this is definitely a hot topic. It's like the perception of you as an artist, if you only do fan art, is going to be a little different than someone that only does original. And I'm trying my hardest not to make this to like a compare-contrast game, but I think it's one of those things where a lot of artists, you can tell, want the same, like, oh, you know what? I feel like this is not a good discussion to get into on this day. This is definitely one where I'd almost want like a few of my own art friends having for like a live debate, because I think this one's good to have different perspectives on, and maybe I'll wait until I have like a roundup of my friends to have this debate on. So I'm going to move on. Felix says, having opacity locked layer groups is super important to my workflow, but it does give a very distinctly digital look. Super sharp silhouettes with very soft internal gradients. Yeah, I would definitely say you can almost always tell if something's done digitally. I would say nowadays the new thing is like being able to tell if something is done with AI, because it kind of has that look. And I think for a while that was like the comparison with digital, is it has a look, and especially with what you're saying, it's that opacity between your brush strokes when they're overlapping that you can kind of tell it's digital, not like a acrylic or a oil painting. Llama lookalike, any medium you're super nervous to try. Watercolor, I would say that one makes me the most nervous. That one I give so much respect to the artists that work in that medium all the time because it looks very difficult. Like, I know oil is probably technically the hardest, like, typical art medium that people associate, but I just think the idea of, like, working with water, which is, I don't know, it has kind of a mind of its own, and you really have to be in control of it so it doesn't, like, run away and warp your paper or bleed the colors too much. So yeah, I would say watercolor would be the one. All right, let me focus on this leg here. Let's see, what do I want to do? I mean, I do like the new theme I'm kind of pushing with this of like surrendering to grace, or surrender with grace. I think that's the push I'm going to go here. You know, I haven't really been a big fan of drawing a lot of floaty fabrics recently. I think tarot has kind of killed my love of draping fabrics at the moment because every tarot card I feel like has a lot of draped fabric, and I'm on my 20th one at this point, and I feel like I'm just like kind of repeating a lot of what I do, and it takes me a little bit to do draping fabric. So now whenever I do a piece and I'm like, oh, but draped fabric would look so good here, I'm like, oh, but you know you don't want to do that. But then I always end up doing it because I know it looks good. So here I am doing kind of floaty draped fabric again. But I always like the result, so I'm like, yeah, that was worth the headache. And the headache's usually only temporary. Let's see here. That one art guy says, I don't want it to seem like I'm creating art for the sake of money. Everything I'm creating comes from what I like and my own ideas. It just happens to be art that I know will sell. Yeah, and here's a really great lesson that I learned a long time ago. Like, you get to define what kind of artist you are, and you know deep down the type of artist truly that you are. So like, if anyone ever puts you in a box and that box never resonates with you, don't let it be, like, don't attach yourself to that identity because you know who you are and what you want to be. So even like me just assuming that with the fan art thing, I'm glad that you like spoke up and were like, well, no, that's not exactly the type of artist I want to be. I'm going to zoom out a little bit too. Maybe like there. There we go. I will say there is a little bit of a stigma of doing fan art versus original. Like I said, I would love to have my art friends on this topic because, well, even with digital versus traditional, I feel like these are just topics that a lot of artists have discussions behind the curtains, and I think it's good to just have these come to light. It's okay to have agreements and disagreements, and it's okay to have different opinions. I think nowadays we're so conditioned to just never have healthy discussions with other people, and I think that's okay. Where am I? Amy B says, that's why I work with watercolor. It's so hard to control, yet so healing to work with. I love it. Yeah, if you can be good with watercolor, I have a lot of respect for you. I just feel like it is a very tricky medium for sure. I'm gonna move this over. There we go. Bullstar says, here's a stream idea. You try watercoloring for the first time live. Oh, I'm sure you would love that. I mean, speak of like ego swallowing your pride. That would definitely be mine. But there's a part of me that also kind of wants to try it. Just because Amano is one of my favorite artists of all time, and obviously he works very heavily with watercolor. And I'm like, maybe there's something about like letting go of the control that I would actually really enjoy. I don't know. give her kind of that leap pose. Maybe I'll work on some of these jewelry parts. I mean, it's interesting that we're even talking about this kind of stuff because the stream today I was going to do a fan art piece, and I haven't really done one since it was like last August. I did a Doro Hedoro fan art because I bought this book called Mud and Sludge, and it was from the mangaka, I believe they're called, of Doro Hedoro, and I just loved it. I thought it was such a good art book. And I really wanted to do a piece because I had such a good time flipping through the pages. I wanted to like reflect that and kind of give homage to the artist. And I really enjoyed working on the piece, but then when I finished, I assumed I was going to do like another fan art piece because I was like, oh, I should probably give tribute to more things, but I started doing an Elden Ring one and it just felt so hollow. And this is more of a personal thing. I really could not connect with it because I felt like the intention was wanting to gain attention through someone else's property. It was like I was trying to take that for myself. And that's obviously not true for everyone's experience. I think I just have a weird association built up with it because of I think the career that I've established for myself over the years. And maybe I gotta let that go. Maybe that I also gotta put that on the train of like things to let go of. Llama Lookalike says, what is your opinion of abstract art? I don't hate it. I think it can be really cool. I don't think it's like my first pick when it comes to like something that I'm interested in my taste level. And some of it I kind of absolutely hate. I definitely think I'm not a big fan at all of the pop art movement. I can respect Andy Warhol and what that movement meant for art and like kind of giving the middle finger to people who would be like, well, that's not art. And they got to kind of redefine what art looked like by the general public. But personally, it's just not for me. I respect the movement, do not like the actual pieces in that movement. And I kind of put abstract in that same bubble where it's like, I can respect it as its own piece of art, and for other people, like if they love it, awesome, just not for me. But every now and then I'll find a piece where I'm like, I like this. Like the color theory just works really nice, and the way they play with contrast and shape, I'm like, all right, I see you there, I see you. What is the hardness of my pencil? I almost always work with a 2H, so yeah, this is a 2H pencil, and I'll usually go in later in the piece when I feel that more has been established already and I don't really have to worry if I need to erase something. So yeah, I'll probably work with a 2H most of the stream. Something else I want to get more comfortable doing, especially on stream, is not being like so tight and small with my lines. I feel like I used to be much more comfortable about just being like really bold and like with a drawing, but now I feel like I play it so safe. I need to make all my lines just so crisp and so clean, but I like lose some of that raw edge to the piece because I'm playing it too safe. Yeah, something like that. While I have this moment really quick, I just want to bring up another book that I read. It was called The Four Agreements. I love this book. This was a really fun one for me, and it's really short. How many pages is it even? 140? But look how big the font is, and the book is obviously pretty small. So this one you can read in honestly like an hour, hour and a half. But I love the way the book talks about like changing your life in different ways of thinking. So the 4 agreements are essentially: 1, keep your word impeccable. And the idea behind it is that people will earn trust and respect based on how impeccable their word is. And the main principle is like, don't lie, follow up if you're going to say you're going to do something. And then I like how this author, I believe he's Mexican, and he pulls from a lot of Aztec teachings. And one of them was talking about how real magic can be viewed as in words. So he was saying, like, imagine telling a young 7-year-old girl that they are ugly or they are fat and they should be ashamed of themselves. You just cast like this horrible black curse, like a spell, like a really dark spell on that girl, and she's going to have those words affect her possibly for a really long time. And they were saying that like our words can be like laced with poison, and that the malice can be like a curse. And I really like that way of thinking. I like thinking of like magical, I don't know, I like fantasy being brought into real life. So then they were saying the opposite could be true too. Like you could have healing words. So you could be like a white mage or a white wizard who casts like cure, but in different ways. Like if you see someone crying, I relate this more to kids because I think it's easier. Kids are more vulnerable with showing their emotions. But if you saw a kid crying and you were also like a 13-year-old at the time, and you go over and ask what's wrong, or like ask if they want to play like basketball or something, even if you just said like, hey, don't mind those bullies, like you're awesome, let's go over here and play that, whatever, you just like casted Kiraga on this kid. Like they're no longer feeling as hurt. But the thing I really liked about it too was they say, well, this goes into the second agreement, which is don't take things personally. And apparently this is the one that most people have a hard time with. But they were saying, if someone says something really mean to you, obviously it's like, yeah, sticks and stones, don't take that personally. But they were also saying, don't take compliments personally either. Because they were saying, don't let other people's projections of you affect how you see yourself. And obviously there's some good things with like, having a positive self-image and the way you see yourself. But they're saying like, don't let other people give that to you for you. Like give that to yourself. Tell yourself that you think you're a good person, or that you're beautiful, or that you're worthy of love, or whatever it is. Because if you rely on other people telling you that you're pretty or something, you're going to have to rely on that to make yourself feel pretty, because outside validation becomes your only sense of validation. So that I really like that agreement. What was the next one? Don't take things personally. Oh, don't make assumptions. So like if a friend doesn't talk to you in like 3 weeks, don't assume that they're mad at you. It could have nothing to do with you. It could be something that they're going through on their own. But we like in our head to start forming all these weird little conclusions that are just like stress related on our own end of like, oh, they don't like me anymore. Or, oh, I said something wrong and that's all they can think about. They don't want to be associated with me anymore from this point forward. And then you talk to them, they're like, oh yeah, my dad's been going through a hard time, so I've been just seeing him more often, so sorry I didn't get back to you in time. So this one was great. Don't make assumptions is one of the best things, because I think it can also stop a lot of gossip. I think gossip's like the worst thing a person can be like reduced to. And I think assumptions kind of plays into that, because I think people gossip out of fear. They want to be liked or they want to be accepted. So they gossip about other people to make themselves feel better and to other people. And then the very last one, kind of cheesy, but very true. It's always try your best. And the whole idea behind that is if you always try your best, you can never be upset with the outcome. So yeah, that was the 4 Agreements book. You don't even have to read it. I just gave you the full the full book in just that little bit. But no, I highly recommend it. I'm a very big fan of reading nonfiction books like this recently. Very philosophy-heavy books or like work-related books. And then the ones that I have on deck, I've got Essentialism, which was the one I was mentioning earlier, which is basically cutting out all the nonsense from your life that you don't need to be doing, but you think you need to be doing. And this actually gets stuff done, or at least that's what I've been told. And the other one was A Creative Act, A Way of Being. I heard really good things about this book, and I don't know a lot about it, so I don't want to recommend it either way, but those are the next 2 books I have after Atomic Habits. And I was thinking about this. If any of you are interested, please let me know, because I could definitely see myself doing this. But now that I'm taking notes with all the books that I'm reading, would anyone want me to do, like, maybe at the end of the year, just do like I read it so you don't have to kind of book video for YouTube, where I could just go through like 5 books and basically sum it up like as a verbal cliff notes on what the book means, what it could, what it was trying to say, and what it could benefit into our lives, blah, blah, blah. Because I've been thinking about it, I'm like, you know what, I know I'm an art channel technically, but I think a lot of these books have a lot of things that could help artists. I know, at least for me, reading these books have been very beneficial into how I see life and moving forward as not only an artist, but as a person. And the better of a person you become, I think the better of an artist you can become. So I don't know, something I was thinking about recently. Let's see here. Lady Rose says, I feel the same way about fan art as you. I hope to sell my own art one day, and the advice I keep getting is sell fan art to build my audience, and it's a bit discouraging because I don't do fan art. I would be very hypocritical if I said, oh, you definitely shouldn't do fan art, blah, 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 because the way I got my start was doing fan art. Back in the day, I was the person behind a booth popping buttons, because pins didn't really exist, the metal enamel ones you see nowadays. So everyone would have like buttons that you would pop on your own. And almost all of mine were fan art. They're like little fan art buttons. And admittedly, they did very well for me. Well, at the time. I thought selling for $2 a button and 3 for $5 was like, I was making bank. I remember one con I made, the first one I did, I made $800. And I was like, I'm rich. I remember being like, I can retire. But I mean, obviously the delusions of a young artist getting like paid for the first time. And I did really well, and I would make prints. I did a lot of League of Legends because that's what I was playing at the time, and there was a good response to that. And I could have seen myself going down that route of doing more fan art, but something for me personally that happened was every time I would go to a con, people would only want to talk about League of Legends with me because that was the art I was giving. And at first it was kind of fun because I was like, oh yeah, you also play League of Legends? Like, who's your main? What lane do you pick? And then after a while, I'm like, oh, this is like draining because I'm basically just acting as a free advertisement or like a billboard for this other property. And even though I love the property, it's not really anything to do with me personally. Like, yeah, I might draw it a little bit with my interpretation or a little bit of my style included, but people are just buying it because they love this League of Legends character, like Jinx. I remember I drew Jinx back in the day, and it's like people are just buying it because they like Jinx. They could care less who I am as an artist. And who knows, maybe there's another ego thing talking where it was like back in the day even, I was like, I want to have my own voice be heard and connect with people through that voice instead of someone else's voice. So yes, I started out with fan art, so I would be a hypocrite if I said you shouldn't do fan art to make money. Yes, I was making good money doing fan art. I will say I have made a lot more money doing original, but I also think there's a good chunk of luck that was involved with that. I think it was timing. I think a lot of it happened at like pivotal times that were changing with social media trends, and I don't want to pretend like I did it all on my own. Oh, well, thank you. I don't know what character that is for subscribing, but thank you. So yeah, I know what you mean though, because I was in that same boat for a while where it was like, I don't want to feel like I have to draw fan art, but I will say it can definitely help. And maybe this will make you feel better too, is like you definitely stand out as an original artist. It's up to you and the output that you're determining, or to determine if you're standing out for a good or a bad reason. Okay, let's see here. Hello, Winter. Hello, hello. Tijol. Hello, hello. Yeah, I think I'm going to take these book reviews more seriously because I'm obviously very obsessed with reading books right now. I'm like, I kind of want to share this with my art people who might be able to benefit from these. Llama Lookalike, somewhat off topic, but what favorite quote have you ever heard? Would love a video about books you find interesting. Oh my gosh. I collect quotes like I have a problem. I have so many quotes that I love. Let me think of one that I've heard recently. Oh, what was it? I'm kind of embarrassed, but I think I saw it on TikTok. Hold on, let me find it really quick. Let me turn my volume all the way down. Is this it? Hold on. No, that's not it. That's not it. I mean, for a while, one of my favorite quotes was treat every day, or every day is a rededication. And it was the idea of like, don't rely on what you've done in the past. You have to be like excited and inspired every day to keep moving forward in whatever path you're going down. Which I really like that quote still. I'll have to find it another time, and maybe next week Wednesday, because I'll probably stream that and I'll probably have that ready. But I don't know. I like quotes. I know I get made fun of sometimes by my friends, but I like them, especially if it's just like a sentence or two, but it really cuts to the core. I really like those. Have you ever read The Artist's Way? I don't believe I have. No. I think I've read The War of Art, or The Art of War. No, The War of Art, or something like that. That one was pretty good. I don't know if I would recommend it, but it was pretty good. All right, let's see here. I don't know if I like how this hair looks necessarily. Where's that thumbnail I created earlier? Create a bunch of lines here. Like I said, I want to create the movement going this way, but I'm realizing the hair, it's very much kind of going this way, but I want the lines to kind of continue this way. So I think I have to add some hair. See if I can kind of block this out this way. Boole says it's a nonfiction book, but I think you would enjoy the book. Oops, scroll down. The Alchemist. Ooh, I've heard of this one. I need to read it. I've had a few people recommend this one already. Did you like it? Riz says, I think you would also like The Artist's Way. Man, I feel like I've known of this book. Maybe not. I'll write it down, though. The Artist's Way. Yeah, I'll look it up. Digital life sucks and then we die. I mean, I definitely have, like, since last September, I got super existential, like crazy existential, to the point that I thought I was actually dead, and I thought I was, like, living on Earth, but everything was just a projection of my mind to protect me from accepting the reality that I did die. And it was very dissociative. It was really hard falling asleep. Thankfully, I'm out of that spell now, and I've kind of accepted, well, if I did die, this afterlife's kind of amazing. So I don't know. I feel very delusional with life in general. I feel like I have this optimism that I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was my parents. I don't know what, but like, I love being alive. I think it's such a wonderful, awesome experience, and I recognize that I've had a privileged upbringing, and I wasn't rich, but I was definitely rich with family and love, and it gave me everything I needed to be like a happy adult. So I don't know. Life has been very weird, but I remember it was like in September when I thought, I was in my projected afterlife. I remember looking at my 5-foot drawing upstairs of the mermaid thing that I'm working on, and I remember just being like, I didn't get it done, but who cares? Doesn't matter. Like, none of this matters. And I thought, looking back in hindsight, I thought I would have more of like a feeling guilty or bad that I didn't finish it. But I think it just really realized to me, like, yes, art is important to me. It's a passion. But, like, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter as much as being a good person, connecting with others, figuring out who you are, trying to better yourself. Like, all these things that were really fun, like family. Because there's a chance that, there is nothing after this. So I want to make sure that while I am alive, that I make the most of it. And then I had this really, really wonderful revelation that it's the only fear I've ever really actually had. And now I have like a weird fear of dying, but not because I'm afraid of like what's after or if nothing actually mattered. But my fear of dying is because I love being alive so much. I'm going to be sad not being able to experience it anymore. So like that's kind of the weird delusion mindset that I'm in right now. So yeah. Anyways, I think a lot of these books have helped ground me. Sorry, the whole point of me even mentioning that is like these books have been grounding me again to reality and then putting in context of what I'm feeling and giving words to these feelings. And I've been able to connect a lot. There's one book called The Untethered Soul. That book was phenomenal. I love, love, love that book. And even in like the first chapter, it just really gives a good insight. And I'll just say like, do you ever have that feeling like when you're alone, do you always have someone like talking in your head and there's like this non-stop ramble that's going on and on and on and on? The book always says like people always assume that that's you or like your inner voice or your soul like talking and just projecting. And the book basically tries to break you from that understanding and be like, that's actually not you at all. You are the one listening to this rambling, neurotic, anxious voice that's happening constantly in your head. You are the person basically sitting in a chair listening to all these thoughts happen all the time. And a lot of them are like out of neurotic anxiousness, like this person doesn't like me. I need to wake up earlier because I'm lazy. And like we're very harsh. That voice is very harsh. And the book basically mentions of like, if we would just get up from that seat in our mind, turn around and not listen to that neurotic voice anymore, which he calls, I think, the noisy roommate. If you take that noisy roommate and don't pay attention to him anymore and then look at the universe and what's available to you, there's so much more to life. And I love that. I loved that reference because I always assumed that voice talking in my head was me. So to have this book be like, what if you try to separate it? And what if that voice was just like your very nervous, anxious, neurotic roommates that you created as a way to survive the world that you live in? And I love that. I love that idea. So if that interests you, Untethered Soul is a great book. Felix, don't do drug, kids, okay? I'm definitely not like pro drugs. I wouldn't say I'm against psychedelics necessarily. I think if you're in the right atmosphere and you're around the right people, at least for me, psychedelics have been a great way of opening patterns of thought that I didn't know existed before. And it's really giving me a different purpose or like a sense of what matters in life, which has been really beautiful. So even though I had a really intense trip in September of last year, I wouldn't, if I could go back in time and like take it back, I wouldn't, just because I feel like I've grown so much as a person in the last 6 months from that kind of weird experience. But obviously I would never recommend it to anyone because you really have to be in a good mindset around people. You should have a babysitter. That's why I never like recommend it to people. But I wouldn't say I'm against it. The One Art Guy says, my favorite quote is, my darling girl, when you are going to realize that being normal is not necessarily a virtue, it rather denotes a lack of courage. Kudos if you know where it's from. Oof. Love that quote. But I also think, and being with Josh, he's taught me a lot too, because I think I used to put artists on like a higher platform and maybe or like a pedestal. And maybe I was doing this subconsciously. Like I didn't really know I was doing it, but I had a lot of respect for other artists. And I feel like if I wanted to befriend someone new, I really wanted them to be an artist because I thought they could bring more to my life. I could, be friends with them. We could relate on something. And, I saw more value in other artists. And then being around a lot of non-artists the past few years, I realized how kind of insensitive and judgmental that was of me to just assume that people that I perceive as normal or boring, which is even worse, are like not worth getting to know. Because I realized, wow, a lot of the times these are the people that can teach me the most in life, because they don't have the same need to be like validated by strangers on the internet. Like I think about the artist's life sometimes and how a lot of us can get sucked into the trap of like needing other people's approval, where a lot of the quote unquote normal people that I've met the past few years don't have that. All they want to do is have a good time. And I don't know why, but I feel like I used to look down on that. And now I'm realizing, oh no, I think I was the problem. So even though I do like that quote, because I do think when people live out of fear, I think that's like the only way you can have regrets later in life. But I think some people are just super content just not having these lifestyle, like rock star lifestyles or celebritism that I think a lot of artists do chase, myself included. I don't want to put myself outside of that. Not so much as I used to. I used to really care about specifically my Instagram growth, but I think I've been doing a much better job at recognizing why I was feeding into that and why I was getting validated, and I felt like what I was doing, like my voice mattered. But now I'm realizing my voice can matter even if it's only to like my really close friends and family that I get to actually see in person. The 20 people that are in my life like consistently and I see them a lot, their opinion matters now way more to me than the internet, the vague social media platforms that I post my art on. Like I'm very grateful for it and I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I think it's very easy to get sucked into wanting that validation all the time, and then you lose sense of what's actually important to you. At least in my experience. I don't want to say that's everyone's experience. Tijel says, let's face it, the only thing that matters in this lifetime is Josh's vegan pancakes on Sundays. I do love the vegan pancake Sundays. It's very good, especially when he does chocolate chips. It's my favorite, actually. Llama Lookalike says, I often find life to be more mind and body and less body with mind. I don't know if that makes sense. I am at that existential stage right now at the moment, and it makes life more precious in a way, appreciating mortality. Yeah. I remember, who was it? Oh, I was talking to Kat. So I won't say specifics, but basically one of my friends is very concerned with like physical appearance, we'll just say, and the switch that they've had in the last few years of like, my body is, I don't care how it looks because my body is a machine that allows me to do the things that I love. And it's so, I don't know if it's because I've never really had body image issues, but the way that I always looked at it, I remember even as a kid, I thought I was kind of I don't think I thought of myself as an ugly child, but I always thought I was just whatever looking. Like it didn't really matter to me. And I remember it was like somewhere in my teenage years, I was like, I clearly wasn't getting the attention from girls at that time. Now, obviously, it would be boys. But at that time, I wasn't really getting the attention for my looks. So then I remember just being like, you know what, that's okay. Because the longer I'm alive, the less your physical appearance matters and the more of your personality matters. So I remember just thinking, as long as I can like garner a fun personality that people would want to be around, like that's what will matter later in life. So I don't know. I just never really cared about looks that much. And I think if you even talk to Josh, like most days I look like a Goodwill charity case where I really don't care. Maybe like when I go to cons, I'll try to like play dress up, but it's more like for fun. It's not like I'm trying to impress people physically, if that makes sense. So yeah, I see the body as like a temple. I know this is so generic, but it's like a way to be able to draw and like go play pickleball or do some of the things that I love doing, right? Hiking, being able to wake up without aches. So like I give it enough water. And I think it's something good that we should start viewing our bodies more in a positive light. Anyway, sorry, kind of a tangent. Amy says, we are not our thoughts, we are the awareness of our thoughts. Yes, that is literally like a lot of what Untethered Soul tries to reiterate, which I love that thought. Because for the longest time, I mean, even into my early 30s, I kind of assumed my thoughts were me, but they're not. Amy says, oh wait, it jumped, here we go. If you like the Four Agreements, you will love A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. It also talks about consciousness and being the observers. A New Earth. I'll write that one down too. Yeah, I love hearing new book recommendations. I mean, like I said, I do have the books that are up on deck right now, so I'm not changing those. I need those to be my next two for sure. But then after that, I'd be open to these suggestions that you guys are giving me. Digital says, so you're now befriending non-artists? Oh my god, I finally have a shot of becoming friends. Oh, Digital. Actually, me and Josh were just talking about you. I'll have to message you outside of this. It's something you'll really enjoy it. But I think I was being harsh in my 20s specifically on meeting people that weren't artists because I was so driven. I was so passionate at that time. But I let that interfere with how I wanted to get close with other people. And it was very selfish. It was very vain. I'm not proud of it, but I feel at least I can come out on the other side and recognize that, yes, that was something I would consider a fault in my personality that I don't think I carry with me anymore at all. If anything, I've seen the beauty of how non-artists can add so much value to my life outside of the art world, that I've like made efforts to get to know people that aren't artists. It's almost done like the opposite. And it's been really lovely. Very lovely. And Digital, we're already friends. Get out of here. Felix says, I've also been weirdly spiritual since rededicating myself to my art. I think that's because I had to reduce myself to rationality in order to be able to follow a normal career. I still don't believe in God, but I have this sort of delusional belief in magic/dreams and spiritual purpose. Yeah, it's very strange. I grew up very Catholic, Irish Catholic, and I didn't grow up in a very harsh religion. I don't know if it was just because I grew up in Wisconsin. It was very much like, as long as you're sorry for your sins, like you'll be forgiven and you move on. And the whole idea is, as long as you're a good person, God wouldn't send you to hell. Like that was kind of the upbringing I had. So it was very lax, we'll say. And I thought that's kind of how everyone viewed like Christianity or God until I went to college and I started to realize, oh, some people take it very seriously. And then I've met some people, even in the last 5 years, where they're very much like, everyone's going to hell. Only a handful select from God that follow a specific religion, that follow a specific path of salvation are going to be saved. And this is my personal opinion, so take this with a grain of salt. But I think a lot of this has to do with control. And I think a lot of people like feeling in control of other people or feeling like they're the ones in the right or in the know. Especially after my birthday shroom trip that I thought I really did die. I won't get into specifics, but for the first 2.5 hours, it was easily the worst experience of my life because I thought I was in what I thought was hell. I thought I was in like the afterlife, but then it kept getting worse and worse. And I'm like, oh my God, this is forever. And I kept like falling on the floor. I kept rigor mortising. And I remember at one point, it felt like my lower chin was like a soft cookie that was crumbling inward. Like I was returning to the dirt. That's what I kept telling myself. But then I was like, well, mind you, I was like on the floor thinking I was in the worst place ever, just hearing like this horrible buzzing noise, thinking I was returning to dirt. But then I was like, but then why am I still able to perceive out of my eyes? Like, why can I still see things? And why don't I feel pain? Like, even though I feel like I'm crumbling into dirt, why don't I feel that pain? And I was like, wait a minute, what if the afterlife is whatever you want, whatever you make of it? So the first 2.5 hours were easily the worst experience of my life. The next 5.5 hours after, easily the best moment of my life, hands down. I feel like I actually experienced what the word euphoria is defined as, because when I made the switch of like, if your afterlife is what you make it, I don't want to feel like I'm returning to the earth. I want to feel like glorious. And I remember in my, hallucinogenic mind at the time, I was like, I want it to be sunnier outside. So of course I'm imagining things getting sunnier. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Like, you have infinite powers, and like things were starting to come to me, but I was like, wait, but why am I in my house? Like, if this is heaven, this isn't like the pearly gates, or this isn't anything what any book I've read about what the afterlife is like. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if you get to make your own version of afterlife or heaven, whatever you call it, there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be than my own home. And then it was cute because then like Josh turned the corner, and I remember looking at him being like, why are you here? I was like, oh my God, my mind's projecting this like spiritual guide. That's you, Josh. Like, you're me, but I'm projecting it because I need like another person to help me through this afterlife experience. And I was like, I could project you to be any celebrity I've ever had a crush on, like anyone, any physical traits I could possibly want. And I was like, oh my gosh, but I wouldn't want anyone else but you to be like my spiritual guide. And it was, I started crying. I'm like outside of the bathroom on the floor, like not the prettiest scene, but I had so many aha moments of what I think the afterlife could look like. And it was so beautiful because I was like, you don't have to worry about dying. You don't have to worry about hunger, war, making money. That was a big one. I remember like, I can just breathe. So the next 5 hours were absolutely phenomenal because I thought I was in my own afterlife. So when I think of like religion and spiritualness, I think I've become very spiritual because I've seen like a possibility of what the afterlife could look like, and it's such a beautiful one. And I'm like, if there really is a God, I mean, I'm definitely one of those hippy-dippy people where I'm like, I'm just a thread of fabric in this woven blanket called humanity. I am you, you are me, we are all one. Like, I definitely feel that and believe that. Once again, probably delusional, but it feels right to me. And I'm not going to say it's the capital T truth because no one knows that. But I will say it definitely made me feel very connected to something greater than myself. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to define that. But I feel that same way that you're feeling, Felix, where it's like, I don't feel religious, and I don't know if I necessarily believe in a God or like God, but I feel like I kind of do, but it's hard for me to define. So that's where I'm at right now. And the best part is I don't feel this pressure to like, I have to know and understand it. Because I think a lot of it is like, if there is a quote unquote God, I think he or she, whatever it is, I think they would want you to understand and experience it on your own and come to your own conclusions that make sense to you. Because what if in the end we are all just, what if God is everything and you're just a part of it? And you know what the craziest thought, I know I'm getting way off tangent now, but one of the craziest thoughts I have had was, what if God is actually just a word meaning everything, and when we die, we realize that we were all actually God this whole time, but maybe God was so lonely that he fractured himself into like a bunch of different people to start, creation, whatever, because he wanted other people to experience the sensation of what being alive is. And then he like forgot, or he forced himself to forget or something, that he did this in order to feel like there was separation between people. And then like finding those connections again are like rebuilding your establishment of what God is. Like I said, very weird thoughts that I've had in the last 6 months. It's been kind of, it was scary at first, but now it's kind of wonderful. Because like I said, being alive is just awesome. But anyways, I'll get off that tangent here. Where was I? one art guy says, it helps if you understand that no one is ever truly normal. We all have a little freak in us. Yes, absolutely. Elena says, your experience with shrooms reminds me of how I didn't used to be scared of death dying. Now I am scared of suffering caused by one single horrific nightmare I had about 15 years ago. Yeah. I think the first 2.5 hours, that's exactly what I was feeling. It's like suffering, and it was horrible. Like I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat. The first 2.5 hours of the birthday day was awful, just absolutely awful. So I feel you on that. I don't know if I have a fear of suffering, maybe as much as you do, or to the extent that you do. But I at least can maybe understand what that feeling is like, where it's like not only are you in a horrible state of suffering, but there's no escape and it's only going to get worse. I had that thought for a good chunk of that. Tishel says, is there video evidence of this? I'm willing to pay. No. Gosh, no. And I don't think I would ever show it. It wasn't the best day, we'll just say it. Wasn't the best. One art guy says, I haven't done psychedelics, but I do meditate. The first time I successfully did it, I found myself in my original past life. I could go into how magical it all was, but word count. Yeah, I know that's something that my best friend Kat's doing. She is like exploring her. I mean, like I said, I don't know. I don't believe anyone when they say like capital T truths of anything, but if they're believing that, yeah, they're experiencing their past lives, I don't know if that's something I necessarily believe, but I'm always curious to hear about it and like what people believe. And yeah, she's been doing that too, and a lot of the work of like understanding who you are by understanding who you were in lives before. So that's interesting. Hey Jim, how are you doing? So you're telling us Dante was probably tripping on shrooms when he wrote the Divine Comedy? Wouldn't surprise me. Actually, a lot of books that were written, I think there's ones that are more obvious, like obviously Alice in Wonderland. Obviously he was tripping. But then you start to think of other books, and you're like, Wizard of Oz? Possibly. I don't know exactly when shrooms were like formally found and discovered. I'm sure they've been here for generations, and people have been doing them unbeknownst to them that they were tripping off of mushroom that they consumed and digested. But it was funny. I was talking to my parents about this. I'm in that point in my life where I can talk to my parents about anything. And sometimes they don't want to talk about like shroom trips or like their child doing drugs, but I just feel very lucky that I have parents that like feel comfortable discussing anything and wanting me to bring up any topic that I want. So I was talking to them, and they're still very much in the religion of Catholicism. And I remember it being like, if there is a God, why would he invent mushrooms that would cause psilocybin to enter your blood flow and brain and make you trip and hallucinate? And I thought I stumped them, but then my mom was like, the same reason he made poison ivy. She was like, sometimes you have to know when something's bad for you, even though it might be tempting. And my dad was like, well, no, that's not how you should view it. Like my dad was like trying to defend me for a second. But I do like the idea of like shrooms are a very natural thing. If we take out politics, we take out governments, we take out preconceived conceptions about it, just imagine there's this thing in nature that you can consume it, and you can open up different pathways of thinking just by consuming a mushroom. That is so bonkers to me. Like what a weird planet we live on, everyone. Like, isn't that bizarre? Amy says, you kind of just described hermeticism. I don't even know what that is. I'd have to look that up after. Anyway, sorry, I've been doing a lot of talking, not as much drawing. And what do I have, like another hour? Okay. So if any of you have to go, sorry that I was rambling about these weird life journeys that I've been on the past year. But I feel like I always want to be, one of the things that I had from this revelation was always to be honest and open. Because since I was 25, one of the things I told myself is I always have to tell the truth. But now in my 30s, it's like I'm building upon that. And it's like not only do I always have to tell the truth, but I should always be open and never be afraid to talk about experiences that I've gone through or who I am as a person, because that can feel very isolating. And I never want to feel like I can't talk with people about either new discoveries or fun patterns of thought or thinking, or if I'm having a philosophical debate in my head, I always want to feel like I can have that conversation with people, because then I can hear different versions or theories, or have a conversation about it that might be different than mine. It might make me broaden my own way of thinking. So anyways, let's see here. Llama Lookalike says, all being one makes sense. We all came from stars. Maybe our tether being stronger with certain people comes from being from the same star. Oh, my friend Kat would love this. She just read a book called Star Child. And it's like reconnecting with that. You know what? I'm going to literally screenshot your quote, and I'm going to show this to her. I think she's coming over on Friday. We got another gazebo that we're putting in our backyard. I'll take pictures and put it on the Patreon Discord, or I'll put it on Instagram as well. This is our 5th gazebo. I'm not proud of this, but every winter the tarp on the top breaks because we don't take it down soon enough. Like I said, very embarrassed by that, but we got a metal top one. Now Josh finally convinced me to get one that is a metal top so that we don't have this problem ever again. So it's coming on Friday, so we're going to put up the new gazebo. The vonnart guy says, as a result, I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm afraid of not getting everything I want done before that happens. I used to have that. I always remember being like, if I don't write swordplay and get it out in the world before I die, I'll feel like a failure as a person, because I feel like that was the one thing I really wanted to get back. I'm telling you, during my weird trip, I really realized, like, and I don't want this to sound pessimistic or, oh, what's that thing? What's the thing where, like, one of my friends calls himself this, Tyler? Where it's like nothing matters, but you choose to make things matter. I forgot what that's called. There's a word for it. Anyways, I had a very strong feeling that, like, nothing actually matters. And it's something that still resonates with me today. And I think that's why sometimes it's hard to do art, or it was hard in like January and February for me to want to do art, because I'm like, none of this even matters. Like, why do I even care? Like, why am I like choosing to make most of my life about making money to pay for things I probably don't need? I don't know. It was very hard for me to do art. But then I realized, wait, I get to choose to do art. And I think that switch, it happened in like March or April, probably April, where I realized, like, oh no, art can be this awesome, beautiful thing that I get to engage with, and I get to do it for myself. And I think that's why I've been going on this journey recently, and like why I'm more open to doing what Felix was talking about earlier, where it's like, let's go through the Proco figure study thing, where like every week we hold each other accountable. Like, okay, we're doing the study on arms today, and then we're doing hands, whatever it might be. Because it's like, if you're having fun with it, that's what matters. Or at least that's where I'm at and thinking right now. It's like, if I'm having fun with it and it's giving me joy and I'm connecting with people through it, I absolutely want to do it. And it no longer feels like this isolating chamber where I'm just creating art out of a silo. And it's been wonderful. Okay, where was I? Bullsar's a bit off topic and personal, so you don't want to share, that's okay. But how did your parents react when you came out to them? Like I said, I feel very comfortable talking about anything, everything, and being honest. So I came out when I was about 25, and I'll keep a long story short because there's definitely way more to this. But essentially, I remember before I told my parents, I was mentally preparing myself to basically live on my own. Like, if I needed to rely on myself financially for any kind of stability, little 25-year-old me was like gearing up and preparing for this. And it was tough because my dad just was like announced, or he just got the diagnosis of having cancer like a few months prior. So I remember being like, it might be really hard, but I might not be able to see my dad, but I need to tell him before he dies. And it was a very life-changing moment for me, because I think that's when I first started really being brave in my life. And I think, you know how people say, like, people aren't courageous because they want to. A lot of times it's because they have to. That's kind of what I was feeling. And I took him out to dinner, me and my parents, and I told them, and I was so ready to cut them out of my life, and looking back, I can't even believe how unbelievably selfish I was to think that these two people who have raised me since I was a baby and shown me nothing but love and acceptance would potentially cut me out of their lives. I am very lucky. I have very good parents. They're very, very wonderful, and they took it very well. My mom still doesn't quite understand, but she doesn't need to. And I think she made that very known to me. She's like, I don't understand maybe why you're attracted to the same sex, but she was like, I love you regardless. And that's all I needed to really hear. So I had a really good coming out. Obviously not the same for everyone. And I know even my hubby-to-be, Josh, he didn't have really the best experience. Actually, he had probably the very generic, horrible experience that you could have of like not being accepted, getting kicked out, being on your own. So, I don't even want to get into this tangent, but me and Josh had a good conversation about like Pride Month and how it feels strange in 2023 where it's mostly tolerated and accepted in America. And I know that it's getting convoluted with new issues of like drag queens and trans issues and things that I'm not like directly involved with as much as it used to just be more about being like gay or lesbian and all that. And even the way I worded that, maybe not just entirely, but anyways, you know what I mean. Where I'm like, you know what though, there are some kids out there that they're still having horrible coming out situations, and for them, Pride Month still matters, and it still means something when they see a rainbow on a billboard. And yeah, maybe for Josh and I, who are very comfortable in our Wisconsin lifestyle, being surrounded by love and friends and family that accept us, yeah, maybe that rainbow billboard isn't as necessary. But I'm like, it's not for us. It's no longer something we need. So, anyways, yeah, I felt very lucky. I had a very fortunate coming out. If anything, I would say my brother was the one that took him a lot longer because he felt blindsided by it. And I wasn't trying to do it to him. If anything, I was scared to come out for myself. It wasn't like I was purposely hiding it from him, but that's something that him and I still need to have like a deep talk with. But he's so opposite of me in a lot of ways. He is very much like, he's a construction worker, grew up, he's the hardest working person I've ever met by far. But he's such a good person, and he's very by the book. So yeah, I really love him, but we've never had like a really good one-on-one about like me being gay, and it wasn't like me trying to hide it. It was just me trying to protect myself. Anyways, got distracted again, as always. Nihilistic, thank you. That was the word I was thinking of. Thank you, guys. The one art guy. Also, people have been tripping for a very, very, very long time. A lot of spiritual religions use things like shrooms in order to access higher states of consciousness. I believe it. To be honest, I feel like I don't know a lot. I'm not very educated on different cultures using shrooms. I'd be curious to hear, though. Just because, like, I'm not going to name names, but definitely some of my friends have been interested in doing it, and they never used to consider it. But obviously, I talk to them a lot about my experience and where I'm at mentally in my life and how I'm more appreciative of being alive. And they're like, I've been depressed for so long. Like, I never thought of myself as being someone that would consider it. But now I'm looking at it being like, maybe this is something that could be helpful. And maybe it's something that I'm not getting through therapy or whatever it is. Like I said, I'm not an advocate of it. I never am like someone that will push it on people. But I do find it very interesting. I think psilocybin's the weirdest drug to be able to like open doors in your mind that you didn't know existed there. They were always there, but then psilocybin basically like opens them up, and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought this problem only had like one or two ways of handling it. I didn't realize there were 18 different ways of looking at it and handling it. So yeah. One art guy says, sorry for the comment dump, but my belief is that souls originate from different aspects of creation. Some are from stars, others from oceans, forests, the sun, the moon, etc. I love when people believe in other things, as long as they're okay admitting that they don't know if it's like capital T truth. Because then in my mind, I'm like, there's no real difference in like the Westboro Baptist Church people and these super spiritual yogi people if they both believe they are 100% right and their way is the only way. As long as you're not into that way or that realm, I love hearing what people believe in. But like I said, there has to be a little bit of a buffer. Or not a buffer, what's that? Almost like not a warning label, but just something that lets me know that they're human. Like they're empathetic to some degree. Digital, poor Josh, where are your family now? Oh, I hope he sees that. Actually, I might screenshot that for him. I can hear him taking out the groceries right now. Yeah, you guys have been great in accepting him, so thank you. Bokimi says, hey Tim, you probably don't remember, but back in the CG Cookie days, I won the Lemon Made contest and got your sketchbook, a wonderful collection of art still have to this day. Well, thank you. I loved the Lemon Made contest. I loved playing with contest titles that were like a play on words. So yeah, Lemon Made. Love that. Oh, and I remember yours. This is really good. Well, thank you. Nice to see you again. Joe the Wizard says, my current quote is, people often only see the brambles in front of them rather than the trail they blazed behind them. Oh, that one's interesting. See, I don't know if I should be hearing that quote right now because I think that feeds into ego, which I'm trying to like completely sidestep. It's funny. I think in my personal life, I've done such a great job with like being able to third person myself and really not see me as any more or less than any other person. But I think when it comes to making art in the art world, I think that's where I've been having a harder time. Well, thank you, Michael Sinjinthaler. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but thank you for subscribing. Just because I think I've been drawing for so long, I think there's some part of me that's like, this should be easier by now. And I think it's just that hard truth of accepting. And I've talked to a lot of artists that have been established to like give me some insight. And a part of it is it'll never get easier. It might be easier financially, and you might feel easier with like your day-to-day. But the act of making art, if you're truly trying to better yourself as an artist, will always have some level of friction and always some level of hurdle that you have to continue to cross and jump over every time you do art. But you really can't take things like making art for granted, and you really have to see it as something that you love doing. And I think this bleeds into the AI discussion that we're always having of why does it matter if the end product is what you're looking for? And it's something that I've always been told by all of my art heroes. So Alan Williams, the Gerards, Corey Godby, even Miles Art, like people that are younger than me, very much able to still teach me things about art. And a lot of it is you have to trust the process. And not only trust it, that's the part you're supposed to enjoy. If you're not enjoying the process of making art, I 100% would not recommend being an artist because that is going to be your career, is literally the process of making art. So if there's any good thing that has come from what I've been doing over the years, it's realizing that doing what I'm doing right now and doing it with you guys live on a live stream, I love doing this. And I think the only reason I stopped streaming so hard as I used to is because I was so overwhelmed with cons. But now that we're trying to lessen that, and me and Josh want more of like a home life, it makes more sense for me to stream again. And I really enjoy this. And even these conversations today, as bonkers and wonky as they have been, it's nice talking with you guys. So thank you for coming. Let's see here. Amy says, believe nothing, entertain possibilities. Caroline W. Casey, making the gods work for you. I love the quote of believe nothing, entertain possibilities. I do think, though, my only addition to that, though, I think everyone should have their own set of beliefs as long as they're willing to admit that, yes, while this feels right and it resonates with me so true, I can also admit that I don't know if this is the capital T truth. Felix says, love Josh. No, that we still don't accept the Crocs, though. No, we're Team Croc all the way. I love Crocs. I think I might zoom in. Maybe for the rest of the stream, I'll just kind of decorate the hair more. I feel like that's always kind of fun to watch and see it build upon. I'll zoom in, though. Let's do it like Maybe like there. Change it back to manual mode. There we go. I need more fabric going straight down. Oh, it almost would be cool if the flag itself got like intertangled with her. I wonder what that would mean though. Because if the white flag is like me surrendering myself to the process and to allowing myself be a beginner again, maybe I should have the flag come down and around. I don't know. Do I do multiple white flags? Something to think about. I definitely want this white flag though, up here. One art guy says, no worries, I have no interest in forcing people to accept my beliefs. I'm an individualist who believes that everyone should pursue their own truths. The experience is euphoric. We are on the same page. I totally agree with that. That's why when people tell me like they think that they possibly were born of the, of a star and different people are from different stars and they might connect because maybe they're from the same star. Like I love just entertaining that idea because even selfishly on like an art way, like that might inspire me to want to draw something that kind of reflects that visual. All right, let's draw some hair here. Maybe I'll keep it like there. Well, thank you, Stroke Nurse, for subscribing. Oh yeah, something else. I might do it outside of the stream though. My art book review that I put on YouTube, it passed 100 view or not 100, 10,000 views, and I remember thinking I wanted to share a lot of the books that were recommended to me because I went ahead and bought them. So I actually have a bunch of books that I bought because they were recommended to me from that video specifically, and some of them are fantastic. And it's, once again, connecting with people. If I wouldn't have made that video, I wouldn't have found these books, and I'm realizing how much value just other people have to me just in general. Like that really is the only currency that really matters in life, for me at least, is like connecting with people. And I think why I've been such a happy person most of my life is because art has been a really wonderful way to connect with people. And I didn't realize it at the time because I thought of it for more like vain reasons. But now that I'm older, I see, oh, the reason art has made me so happy is because it's given me a platform to connect with people. And it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. So I hope if you're an artist listening to this, just know that no matter how popular you get or how much money you make, because those were two things I was chasing for a long time. And then I was able to kind of get both of them to different degrees. And then I still was chasing and I wasn't finding what I was looking for necessarily. And then I realized it's because I already had that from the process of trying to gain money and fame. It was connecting with people. Man, I keep saying I want to do the hair, but then I find other places on the piece where I'm like, oh, but that looks really fun to sketch out right now. Give it a hand here. Llama Lookalike says off topic, but MBTI? I have no idea what that acronym is. MBTI. Oh, the personality test. Oh, what am I? You know what's funny is I don't even know, but Josh knows because he's the one that did mine for me. I feel like ENFP, is that right? Let me double check. Let me Google this. Extroverts, intuitive, feelers, perceivers. Yes. I think that's what I am. ENFP. If that matters to anyone. One art guy says, I can't help but get the theme of butterfly from this. Maybe the white flag where she can dissolve into butterflies. Ooh, what would be the meaning of the butterflies though? Like freedom? Freedom from oneself? I'm not opposed, actually. Oh, look who came to say hi. Casper, you want to say hi to the people?
Never. Nope.
He's wants to go eat. You know what? I'm not opposed to having this break off into something else. And I have been really big fan of butterflies lately. So possibly. Amy says, the mystery of the divine is an individual experience, and any form of gatekeeping is human-made, not holy. Ooh. Yeah, I agree with that. And it's funny, I won't say who, but I will say we've known people in our lives that very much are like, they know the capital T, and they'll tell us we're going to hell and all that stuff. And it's funny because I'll look at the scenario and I'll look at it and I'll be like, you know, I think you guys are great people, but I can understand the circumstances that have led you to where you are now, where that belief feels so concrete to you that you can't sway or hear anything besides that. And I can respect that person, even though they think the worst for me. I can understand why they got to this way of thinking. And in a way, I don't hate them because of it. You know, like I don't hold any ill feeling towards them, because for some people religion will like save their lives, quote unquote, and how can I argue with someone who's has such like a connection to their religion when, you know, if that's what they believe the book of, you know, the Bible is telling them, but it also saved their life. To them, that is everything. They can't see anything besides that, and I'm not going to be the one to fight that. I'm not going to be the one like telling them they're wrong, because I don't know if that's right or not. So if anything, I've been very good at just respecting boundaries. Even if people don't respect mine, it's not mine to earn, and it's not mine to necessarily give, which has been, I think, just a great learning experience for me. Because I used to, I mean, I love debating, but I used to just like being right. I think most people would admit that, or maybe they don't admit it, but maybe they do that without even knowing it. But I realized like there's a lot of humility that can come with just admitting you're wrong, or like admitting that, you know what, I wanted to win this argument, but when we Googled the actual facts, I can admit I was wrong, you were right. And I think that's something that you learn as you get older, and the more that you do it and the more that you can admit that you're wrong with things, the more that people genuinely tend to want to be around you, because then they know this person's not trying to just best you or always be right. And that's been a really, really fulfilling experience recently too. And especially the things that I wanted to be right about were so stupid too. It'd be like video games, like entertainment. I'd always want to tell people like what I think is a good or bad movie. And if people liked a movie that I thought was bad, I would like try to convince them why it is actually a bad movie. But now I'm like, I just don't care. Like if you want to like whatever movie that I don't care for at all, that is yours to like. I'm glad that that movie gave you joy in a way that it could not give me the same amount. Like usually if people want to talk to me like Disney remakes or something, I'm like, I'm so glad that for you that gave you joy. But it just does not do the same thing for me. Yeah, I kind of like where this is going. This one's so weird. It's such a weird drawing. Let me do some leg shadow here. One art guy says, I've had people tell me I'm going to hell, that I should repent from my sinful ways. I've even had people threaten my life, as if these will make me warm up to their beliefs. Yeah, I feel like fear is the strongest tactic to make someone believe in something. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of religions have weaponized that in a way to garner new followers. It's weird being in my 30s now and recognizing that a lot of the religions out there are kind of the same. And it's weird seeing how much someone will try to explain why their religion is the right one. Like out of the hundreds or if not thousands that exist out there, why theirs specifically is the right one, and how when the end times come, they'll be the ones that are saved. And I'll entertain it. Like I'll listen to people and what they believe. But there are times where I'm like, when I'm listening, I'm like, you really are like sold on this, and like maybe this is just me projecting, and from the four agreements I shouldn't be assuming things, but I do assume, unfortunately I do assume still. I try not to, but I always think they're really limiting themselves as like a person, because this is going to be the next 50, 60 years of their life. Like we may not get to see this person grow and develop because they're so set in this way, and they are refusing any outside look or insider perspective to penetrate their own. And it's not that you should be so what's that called when you're influenced easily? Oh man, I'm forgetting words today. But like you obviously shouldn't just immediately follow anything else says if it doesn't align with you. But I think it's good to have a healthy debate and put out the views that you believe in, and then be able to defend it, or at least explain why you believe in those ways. Because if you're not able to explain to someone why you believe in those things, why do you even believe in them in the first place? It's like because a book told you? I don't know. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but Digital, get out of here. Rubber is not a great movie. You know what's funny though is I would actually watch it again, because I watched that when I was in like my mid-late 20s, and I just was not the type of movie I was into at the time. Maybe now that I'm 33, maybe that would be something more entertaining. There's some movies though, there's no way you can convince me otherwise. I think almost every Disney remake I think is terrible. Specifically Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. Lion King was really rough. That was really bad. I haven't seen Little Mermaid, and my mom asked me to go see it with my nieces and nephew. Was it yesterday? And I was like, there's no way. I do not want to give Disney any more money for these remakes. And I know I'm not the person that gets to decide if something's good or bad, but for myself, I know that I don't enjoy them, so I don't want to go see them. And I don't want to see more of them being made, so I don't want to support them financially, because that's how more of these movies get made. Because I have so many people that complain to me about the Disney remakes, but then they'll go see them in theaters. And I'm like, well, if you hate them, stop asking Disney to make more of them with your money. Like, money talks, and it's very loud. Oh, it's right. And you also liked Aragon, Tijal. That one's also a hot take. I think Aragon was pretty rough. Pretty rough. I'm glad that it gave you joy, though. I'm glad that it gave you what you needed. Felix, Cinderella was decent. All the rest, 100% dumpster fire. Felix, you and I, same wavelength. Same wavelength. I thought Cinderella was pretty good, and I remember being like, man, if all the Disney remakes are like this is gonna be wonderful. And then the next one I think was Jungle Book, and I was like, not as strong, but still not bad. But I didn't really care for it that much. But I remember thinking it wasn't like bad. But then, well, I think Beauty and the Beast was the next one I saw, and I remember being like, oh, that was like horrible. That was like really bad. And that was the movie that changed my opinion of Emma Watson as an actress. Like, it was so bad, it made me question her as an actress altogether. I was like, that was so bad. Once again, just my personal take, but didn't care for it. Elena says, I just hate the way remakes are called live action when they also don't feel like live action at all to me. Also, when they screwed up my favorite, Mulan, I stopped watching them all together. See, I didn't see Mulan. I was already on the train of, I'm not going to go watch any of these anymore. So I have no idea what any of the newer ones in like the last 2 years are like. You know what? I might cut the stream off in like 10, 15 minutes just because I think I'm at a point where I need to like take a break from it and then come back to it after a while and be like, okay, what do I like? What do I not like? Let me zoom back out. Yeah, I feel like there's some parts going on for sure, but I think sometimes I get too wrapped up in a drawing where I'm like head down working for a long time. And then when I come back to the drawing later, after like going to the bathroom or eating or something, I'll be like, what the heck was I thinking here? Felix, also, why take on a singing role if you can't sing? Hire someone else to do the singing. Yeah, I agree. That was rough. Amy, thoughts on Avatar? The first one I would probably give like a 7 out of 10, and then the second one, I personally was not super into it. I think I gave it a 4 out of 10 on my review website that I'm on. I thought it was very much repeating the same story beats in order to like satiate the people that watched and liked the first one, which I hate when sequels do that in general. But also, I thought it was very silly. There was very little that I actually connected with, and I felt they pulled a lot of like convenient coincidences or someone being saved at the last second. Like, I hate that kind of stuff. And then when they brought in the whale fluid, that was the basically the tree of life or the goblet, what's that, the immortal life serum, I was so already kind of checked out. But I will say the underwater effects look fantastic. I can always give credit where credit is due, but I think storytelling and narrative, not for me, like almost at all. It felt very derivative of itself, which I thought was interesting. And what was funny is 2 days prior to watching Avatar 2, me and Josh went to go see the new Darren Aronofsky movie, The Whale. And I thought The Whale was fantastic. And what a weird story where even going into it, you obviously assume it's going to be, you know, Brendan Fraser giving the performance of his life because it's portraying a obese man and how difficult it is to be an obese man. And then it kind of pulls the rug from under you because it's not about being obese necessarily. It's about being authentic, and why that is, for Charlie, the main character, that is the most important thing in life to him. And it really touched me. It was so good. Josh was crying a lot on the way back home. I mean, it's hard not to think of, like, if you have people that are obese in your life and then seeing the way that Charlie lives it's hard not feeling sympathetic or, you know, you care for these people and you see how hard it is for them to live or just be alive or get around. And yeah, that can be very heartbreaking to some degree. But I think what the movie actually is trying to tell was so much better than what I was expecting. So it was weird watching that, which was like making you think and making you question different aspects of life and what you believe and morality and what does it mean to be a good person or a good daughter in that movie specifically. Then you watch Avatar 2 and they're like, whale fluid for immortality. And I'm like, not for me. And they brought back the same villain, which I thought was kind of a cheap way of bringing him back. Joe the Wizard says, if you get tunnel vision, then watercolor is for you. When I did watercolor, I did 5 at a time to alternate between them so they could dry. It makes you step away a lot. Actually, that's a very good point. I didn't even think about it like that. Yeah, like for pencil, I usually have a few drawings that I'm working on at the same time. Like hell, even in this room, I'll show you a preview of what I'm working on. So this is the next Wood Than Youth drawing that I'm doing. I got that on the works right now. I have the tarot drawing, you can barely see it. It's like faintly outlined. So I'm doing Temperance as the next card. And then, let's see if it's in here. Oh yeah, all my thumbnails with a new thumbnail. All my new pins that I might be making this year, possibly new coins. Did that on an airplane. And then I was like possibly doing a new version of Medusa. Still not sure about that one. I just was looking at it too. I don't know. I did a drawing of a witch boy. Oh, here it is. So I got the head started with his little hat and his little weather. And if like I didn't even notice this while I was doing it. I just really like long earrings on one ear. And then as I was working on it, I'm like, oh my God, this is Yuna's earring from Final Fantasy X. So I'm going to keep it as an unintentional homage to Yuna. Yeah, I like this drawing though. I don't know where it's going, but I like it. It's very weird. Oh, hi, Casper. You want to say hi? Oh, everyone that doesn't know him, this is Casper, the black cat. Hi. He is the best thing. He is literally my spirit animal. He likes being held. He likes being carried. He likes being pet. If I just rocked him like this, he would let me do this for like an hour without moving. And sometimes he demands it. Right? How are you doing? How's your day? Yeah. And then I've been training myself to draw with one hand holding him and then one hand on the paper because he gets a little mischievous and he'll want to walk over my drawings. So one of the things I've learned to do is literally just cradle him with one arm and then draw with the other so that way he can still get love, but then my drawings don't get ruined. Isn't that right, Gasbar? Right? You like to walk in my drawings? You like to walk in my drawings. One art guy says, I would love to see you do a stream with Proco. Also, have you seen The Fountain with Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz? I've watched all of Aronofsky's movies. I think he is my favorite director, besides the misstep that was Noah. Once again, Emma Watson not really showing her acting prowess, but I love Aronofsky. And weirdly, I'm a huge fan of Mother! I know that's a very divisive film, and I totally understand why people hate it. I'm one of the people that absolutely love it. And yeah, I really like The Fountain. I love it. And Black Swan. I love Black Swan as well. Let's see here. Amy B, facts. Oh, Casper, you want to say hi? Yeah. Oh, see, now he's falling asleep. See, this is the problem. I start holding him, and then I'll, like, try to be drawing him. But he's a little bit of a chunk, so I'll have to, like, maybe I'll just gain more arm muscle. Just by, like, this is my workout. It's just by literally lulling him to sleep in one arm. Right? You're my new body weight. Who needs to buy a 20-pound body weight at Target when I could just use you? You're right, that's not fair. You're only like 9 pounds, but still you feel like 20. Woof. Okay. Yeah, if you have any last minute questions, I think I got like 5 more minutes here, and then I'm going to cut it. I like what we made though today. I like the progress so far. I love the idea of it being the white flags. I don't necessarily know how I want to incorporate. I mean, I'm not opposed to her breaking up into butterflies or something. But I think right now I want a lot of these weird shapes and forms to make more sense. So we'll see. Because one thing I've been bad with in my later years of doing art is I'll just add weird shapes because I like the way they look, but there's really no context to them being there. And I want to get better at like making everything feel a little more cohesive, because I think it's really easy for me to just like throw a bunch of jewelry or random circles and symbols everywhere. So I want it to feel like it has more of a purpose. Because right now, like this area here is definitely contrasting everywhere else, and then these hip jewelry things, I might even erase them. Like I don't know if they're sticking, but because I either erase them or what I could do is add like a crap ton more, maybe here, and then start to push maybe even some up here. Actually, maybe I'll do that. Because I'm definitely still in the more is more mindset. And I think just having like a couple strands of beaded jewelry look very weird when the rest of the drawing has literally 0 of that. So I'm trying to get better at, okay, if I'm adding something, try to add it in a few places, just so that the theme of it as a whole seems to work. Yeah, something like that. And for my Patreon followers, I'll post a progress picture. I've been posting this one specifically since I started, but I'll show what it looks like after the stream. Llama look like? Good of cats to tame the wild humans. Yeah. No kidding, right? I mean, Casper is one of my favorite things that I've ever got to be around in my life. He's just so chill. He's the chillest thing. Felix said, I also really like Mother ! Also, some people thought it was simply an allegory for the Bible, but I also think you could read an allegory for communism into it, which most people miss. I'm telling you, everyone that I've talked to you about with Mother ! Has a different interpretation of what they saw. So I remember I saw it with my CG Cookie co-workers at the time, and they all saw the religious undertones of Adam and Eve and Abel and Cain and all that. God and the earth was the main relationship. I always saw it as an abusive relationship. And, I'm sorry, my friend Deandra saw it as an abusive relationship. My friend Sean saw it as dealing with someone with a drug addiction. I personally saw it as an artist dealing with their own connection to ego and the process of creation. And it hit me in ways, and I'm obviously projecting a lot onto that film, but I love when films allow the personal viewer to have their own takeaway from a film. And that one specifically has so many people that walk away with different interpretations, and I love movies like that. So I think I have a personal bias for movies that are more interpretive or allow it to be interpreted. So for me, like Jennifer Lawrence was like the pure art of creating, right? And like the desire to use creativity and be original. And then the Javier Bardem, he was the artist. So when he's taking care of her, he's able to create beautiful things. But then when he starts ignoring her and starts looking more for his fame and his ego than it is for like taking care of her, things get worse and worse in his household, and the house was representing his like mental well-being. So like the worse that it got, the more that he like mistreated Jennifer. And then when they finally have a baby, I never saw it as a literal baby. To me, that was like a really good idea executed in a very creative, original way. So when that beautiful idea is born, he immediately wants to give it to the followers and to his viewers, and they eat it, they destroy it right away, and they're already asking for something new. And to me, that was such a parallel to how I felt with Instagram at that time watching it, where like as soon as you finish something and then post it to the internet, that thing is dead. That thing is no longer serving you. It was given to the people, they ate it up, and they're already ready for the next. And yeah, watching that movie, I had like such a vivid connection to it. And then immediately after, I talked to my coworkers because we watched it in the theaters, and they're like, yeah, that was a really religious, heavy movie. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That is not what I just watched. And then as they explained it, I'm like, oh, I guess I can see where you're coming with it. And then I realized, yes, that was supposed to be kind of the main interpretation of it. But I love that he left it vague enough that you could experience your own view of it. So I love that you were able to see it as a communism undertone. Digital, I have not seen The Sandman. I've had a lot of people recommend it. I did read The Sandman that was done in collaboration with Yoshitaka Amano. So that I have read, and I did like that quite a bit. Yeah, I think I'm going to cut it out here. Okay. So yeah, this is where we got today. Definitely interesting the direction it's going in. I do want to have this finished by the end of the week. So if you liked where this drawing was going, just look for my socials, and by the end of the week, I will share what this ended up being into. Probably Saturday, if I'm being honest. We'll see. We'll see. Because sometimes life can be distracting. But I'm going to really try to get this done so I can move on from it. But I do like the white flag idea. I'm going to try to really incorporate that more if possible. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming to this live stream. I really enjoy doing these live streams again. If you enjoyed it, I will be back most Wednesdays throughout the summer. And I'll be back next Wednesday. So it'll be a different drawing. Who knows? Maybe I'll start doing the Proco figure series. Maybe I'll do the process of making another pin. Maybe I'll do a digital thing. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's just really nice talking with you guys and being able to stream again, where I'm going to try to make this a habit. So thank you so much for coming, and I have my Patreon if you want to see more behind the scenes, or if you want to watch videos 3 months early, because I do like little tutorials here and there. And then you get to join my community, and I'm on there every day. And then also you can check out my other YouTube videos. I feel like, what other plugs do I need to do? My socials are in the description, but besides that, just thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having a conversation. I missed doing these, and I'm looking forward to next week. Okay. Take care, everyone. Have a good day, rest of your day. Or I guess for a lot of you Europe people, you probably should be